Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and begin our council meeting this evening. So if you would, please grab a seat. We're going to begin with a roll call from our city clerk, Kathy Valdez,
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
and our city attorney, Walter Chung, will bring us out of closed session.
The City Council took no reportable action in closed session today.
And Deputy Mayor Contreras will lead us this evening in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All rise. Ready, begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is Eric Chappell with us? We'll move on to our statement on procedural items from our city clerk, Kathy Valdez.
Thank you. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. I would like to remind everyone that the Vista Municipal Code requires members of the public to observe order and decorum at the meeting and to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. The ordinance was adopted to allow for public input and to facilitate city business without disruption of the meeting. Applause is appropriate for items listed under the presentation portion of the agenda only. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To speak on an item on the agenda tonight, please fill out a speaker slip with the number of the item you'd like to speak on and give it to the secretary or clerk staff here on the dais. Speaker slips are available just outside the council chambers. For members of the public that are participating via Zoom, you may raise your hand to indicate that you'd like to speak by clicking the raise hand feature on your screen or pressing *9 on your phone. We will announce when to raise your hands and indicate you would like to make a comment on the specified item being discussed. Speakers will have 3 minutes each to address the City Council this evening. And do we have any oral communications? We'll go now to our approval of the agenda by City Manager John Conley.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes to this evening's agenda.
Very good. And we have...
Mr. Mayor, may I make a request if it's appropriate? Could we ensure that discussion item 3, since it's about senior issues, might be moved to the number 1 slot so we could wrap up that a little bit sooner?
Without objection, I see no reason why we couldn't do that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, and if you would, I'd like to have you, members of the council, join me at the rostrum. We have 3 presentations this evening. Would you come on up and join us? We want to thank Dick Miller Incorporated for, thank you very much for being here. So we've got Victor with us tonight. Dick Miller has sponsored our Independence Day celebration for many years in a row, and for that we are really grateful. We've got Victor Vargas with us tonight. And we'd like to present you with this certificate of appreciation. And it reads, the City of Vista would like to acknowledge our generous Stars and Stripes sponsor for their contribution in making the 2023 Independence Day celebration a success. Without their support, Vista would not have been able to host the best fireworks display in the county, and it was great. It was 23 minutes long. Not that we're bragging. On behalf of the City of Vista, thank you for being such a generous community sponsor. We applaud your commitment to our community and appreciate your continuous support very much. With that being said, we'd like to present you with a certificate and hope you take a photograph with us and invite you to be a sponsor again next year. So. Thank you again. Yeah, come on up and take a photograph with us. Okay, next we have a letter of appreciation for Scott Raitt for his contribution to the 2023 Independence Day celebration. Scott was an extraordinary citizen who went above and beyond, identified a need, and made a few phone calls and got something done that we weren't sure that we were going to be able to get done. And we probably can say almost certainly we wouldn't have had an Independence Day celebration with fireworks this year without your contribution as a citizen. So we're very appreciative of you. And we know Scott's a good member of the Chamber of Commerce and very active in the business community. And so we wanted to give you this letter of appreciation, and it reads, earlier this year, the City of Vista was challenged with contracting a fireworks vendor for the signature annual Independence Day celebration. COVID-19 pandemic significantly impacted the fireworks industry when those businesses suffered cancellations in 2020. Several could not recover and went out of business, leaving the region with fewer qualified fireworks companies. Additionally, those who have stayed open were booked quickly, and staffing shortages prevented fireworks businesses from adding shows. Due to these impacts, on April 27, 2023, the city announced the cancellation of the 55th annual Independence Day celebration due to a shortage of fireworks companies in the region. The city recognized that the Independence Day celebration is a beloved tradition and shared the disappointment of residents who look forward to this event every year. And boy, were we disappointed. We really were. I know I personally was deeply disappointed. However, upon hearing this unfortunate news, active community member Scott Raitt began calling his network to locate an available fireworks vendor. After a few phone calls, Scott found a company who had a last-minute cancellation for July 4th, and on May 2023, reached out to the city and connected city staff with available fireworks company. On June 8th, 2023, the City of Vista announced the resumption of its much-anticipated Independence Day celebration and fireworks display. The community was thrilled, and Vista thoroughly enjoyed its traditional fireworks show. Thanks to you, Scott. Now, I, the mayor, and the Vista City Council extend our sincere appreciation to Scott for saving Vista's cherished Independence Day celebration and for your dedication to the Vista community. Thank you very much. Come on up and take a picture with us. All right, Scott's proof that every single member of our community matters and everyone can make a difference. Okay, and next, our final presentation is a presentation declaring August 2023 as the American Muslim Appreciation and Awareness Month in the City of Vista. Tazeen Nizam and Fayaz Nawabi will be accepting the proclamation. If you want to come join us, we'd like to invite you to come up. Yes, yes, and any other members of the community that would like to come forward and join, please do. We'll let you be the official bearer here of the proclamation. Our proclamation reads, yes, please come forward. Yeah, all the families, please. Yeah. The proclamation reads, whereas Muslims over the centuries and to this day have made innumerable contributions to the sciences, architecture, culture, and more, and whereas Islam is the third largest religion in the United States and is practiced by more than 3 million Muslims, whereas California has 1/3 of all Muslims in the United States, and with the majority of whom reside across Southern California and San Diego, and whereas the American Muslim community in San Diego, through charitable contributions and social activism, provides support and assistance to residents throughout the region, whereas the San Diego American Muslim Appreciation and Awareness Month celebration promotes and encourages awareness of the significant contributions made by the county's Muslim population in our day-to-day life, including social services, education, politics, business, and technology. And whereas the City of Vista is committed to recognizing and honoring those organizations that are dedicated to the best ideals of public service, and whereas the dedicated month acknowledges the rich history and guiding virtues of Muslims and commends all Muslim communities in California for the lasting positive impact they made towards the advancement of our city and country. Now, therefore, the mayor and the members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim the month of August 2023 as American Muslim Appreciation and Awareness Month in the city of Vista. Would you like to say a few words?
30 seconds.
Sure.
I've lived in Vista for 20 years, and this is a great day for me to be a Muslim and be recognized, and the contributions of the Muslim American community in the city of Vista. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Mayor Franklin and council members. We really appreciate it. This validates that the Muslim community is a part of the fabric of the American society, and we are here, we're contributors, and we make Vista a better, richer city like all the other Vistans. Thank you.
Invite you to take a photograph with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Right in front, big group photo. Come on in, everybody front and center this way.
Okay, that will bring us to the second of 3 opportunities today for oral communications. We have Joe Hood would like to be heard.
Good evening. Remember placing a pot of water on a stove and watching it heat up. Bubbles stir at the bottom, then rise, then more bubbles, and soon boiling hot water. Forget global warming and global heating. We are now beginning global boiling. In the last weeks, Earth has reached the highest temperature since long before Homo sapiens evolved. Ocean temperatures have passed 101 degrees, like in hot tubs, killing corals and much other sea life. Vista must act now. We must do our share to mitigate loss and adapt to our crisis. Please include a climate-positive action discussion in every meeting and impanel an environmental commission ASAP. Number 2, Union Tribune, quote, more than a third of San Diego County families can't afford basic needs. We must build an economy that balances ecology and equity. United Way, quote, a family of 4 would need to hold 3 full-time minimum wage jobs in order to achieve basic economic security in San Diego County. Working families need financial support to supplement rent, childcare, health care, and food, along with more equitable tax. Question: have we identified the at-risk families in Vista? Having hungry children in Vista is simply unacceptable. What actions are needed? As United Way says, quote, "It's time to act. Please, let's act." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael Jacobs.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to commend the City Council on your choosing to paint the bicycle avenues green. It's beautiful. It alerts everybody to it. You all got together on that. I think that's the first time I've seen a unified council. So I just wanted to say I appreciate it. It makes very colorful the city and safer. Thank you. Good job on that. Oh, I did want to ask the question on fixing the other elements in the city, the streets and walkways and all of that. How are those projects determined? What is the process that you go through to choose which area you're going to improve first, and how much is it going to cost, and how do you get the funds for it too? I see you started with Townsend, so you've gotten started. I'm just wondering what the process is and how to get Santa Fe on that list. Okay, thank you very much. Good job on the colorful Vista paint job.
Thank you very much. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take item D3 even before consent, because we may even have a few discussions about some consent items. So, sound good? Okay, so we'll proceed to D3, an agenda item on the age-friendly action plan. If there are any members of the public that would like to speak about the age-friendly action plan, this is item D3. So since we're moving it up a little in the agenda, we'll give you a moment if you want to fill out one of those speaker slips that's just outside the doors here and bring it up to the dais. Let's see who we've got. Would you like to introduce the item before we take the speakers?
Yes, I'd love to. Could we get a statement from the city clerk about participating on Zoom, just as a clarification before this item?
Sorry, I had to get my speaker back on. Yes, if you are participating on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature to let us know you'd like to speak, or if you're calling on your phone, *9, and then we will call on you when the opportunity is available. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure if we do, but I'll go ahead and introduce the item. So I have a couple slides here for us tonight. We'll pull those up. And I'll just begin by saying that as a young person representing our community on Vista City Council, I want to ensure that I include the concerns of senior residents in our decisions, in our policies, and our programs. Elders represent a community here of people who have served and lived in our community and around our community for many years, and they are valued by all, including younger generations. After learning about the idea of an age-friendly plan from my friend Steve, I wanted to pursue this type of plan to address the needs of seniors in our community and ensure that Vista is friendly for all ages. In preparation for this meeting, I went into some District 3 neighborhoods and talked to some senior residents about their initial thoughts on an age-friendly plan. I heard stories about healthcare needs, mobility challenges, income insufficiencies, rent burden, and more. And I hope to just facilitate an initial conversation tonight and ultimately bring in the whole community so that we can develop an age-friendly plan for our city, as it has been done in others. So thank you so much, everyone, for engaging and participating. We'll go to my first slide, which is supporting seniors with a plan. And I'll just restate that we do value the elders in the city of Vista, and we recognize their contributions to our community. Seniors are really cool, and I have some amazing senior friends. Seniors may have unique needs, and we should consider their experience when developing programs and policies at the city of Vista. Next, please. Thank you. Who would be our partners in supporting the plan? AARP provides support to cities that develop an age-friendly action plan at no cost to the city. Grants are available with the San Diego Foundation. The most nearby city that has done this is the city of Carlsbad, and an example, a draft of their plan is included in our packet today. Senior residents, community members of all ages, local nonprofits, and neighborhood groups will be engaged to help develop the plan. So not only will we have consulting support and some technical support through AARP and potentially other consultants that we receive grant funding for, but this is an opportunity for us to include senior residents, maybe of specific 55-plus communities. Maybe we can even connect with different faith communities, our senior commission. There's a lot of opportunities for us to engage different groups that might be concerned about senior issues, aging issues, and just making our city more friendly to all ages. And with that, this is meant to be a plan for everyone. This is to make Vista age-friendly for all people. While making the city of Vista more friendly to seniors, we will seek opportunities to provide safe and successful programs, policies, and environments for all ages. I personally believe very strongly in intergenerational relationships. I think that our society, that a signifier of a good society is one where our seniors, our elders are well taken care of. And that's really the intention here tonight. When we look after folks that are seniors that have given so much to our community, and we honor them then and their vulnerabilities, then we also create opportunities to make this city better for everybody. So what would a age-friendly plan address? AARP outlines a number of domains that may be relevant for the aging community and the community in general. Here are a couple that are included in Carlsbad's plan and are recommended by AARP. And those would be domains such as amenities. This could be our parks. This could also be our public facilities. Any kind of public access that would be available for community members for their use, as whether it be recreational amenities or leisure amenities, natural amenities, or structured amenities where people can have a space to be. Amenities are something that we'd want to potentially look at to see what do seniors need and how do we make our amenities friendly for all ages. Another domain would be wellness. I've spoken with some senior residents about this in particular. Wellness includes mental health, physical health. It's a conversation about healthcare and access to healthcare, but also a conversation about things like nutrition and other ways of providing for well-being beyond just healthcare. So I think wellness is a really dynamic conversation we can have with seniors and all people in our community. Another concern might be mobility. Folks who are no longer able to drive their car may wonder how they're going to get from point A to point B. Are there services that we can provide for that? Are there programs we can establish for that? So mobility is, we want people to have freedom to move and freedom to go where they want to go. And if someone has limitations, how do we accommodate them? Another domain that is very serious for many seniors in our community is housing. There are folks that are experiencing rent burden and are at risk of becoming homeless, and the senior community is the fastest growing demographic of people experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity. So I would definitely put my support in that domain very strongly. Next would be participation. This could be civic participation. This could be workforce development, right? Many seniors in our community are younger seniors who may still like to participate in the workforce and maybe need technical training and education to help them accomplish those goals. So how do we create policies and programs that allow seniors and people of all ages to participate in our community, in our economy, in our civic life, all of that? And ultimately, this plan would be to address community, right? Relationships and preventing isolation and integrating seniors into our community and making sure that there's direct links, right, between one person and another. There's always a program or always a resource for someone to be connected to some kind of community here, and the City of Vista can offer that through programs and policies. Thank you. Next slide. So our action steps. What do we need to do to create a friendly city, a multi-generational plan that is going to address the needs of seniors in our community and really highlight the best that our city has to offer? Well, we can partner with AARP. The way that we would do that is by providing a letter to AARP from the Vista City Council and the mayor in support of developing an age-friendly action plan. And then we could also direct our City of Vista staff to pursue grant funding and other support from the SD Foundation and AARP. I imagine there might be other action steps we take down the road, right? Different community meetings we would have and different presentations we would give to different senior communities. But these would be the initial steps that we need to take in order to start to formulate a formal plan that really has some structure to it and has the potential to be actualized for our community. That would be the goal of the plan, is something that we can materialize, right? We come together, we decide on a really great plan, getting all the feedback from seniors and people in our community of all ages, and then it's something that ultimately can be implemented in our community. So I will go ahead and make a motion now during my time speaking that we direct our city staff to provide a letter to AARP in support and pursue the grant funding from the SD Foundation so that we can begin this structured process of developing a plan. But in the meantime, I also will take us to the next slide and just say thank you so much and invite us to have some public comment and council discussion so we can hear from everyone. All right, that's all for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I just want to make sure todos que necesitan interpretación tienen sus audífonos. ¿Están bien? Okay, thanks, Imelda. I saw you going around. I appreciate it. Just wanted to make sure that everybody that needed interpretation has everything that they need.
Okay. Okay. And we'll go to our first public speaker, Israel Hernandez, followed by, and if you would please come forward and be ready to speak at the conclusion of the previous speaker, Stephen Burrell, and then Sid Rothenberg. Mr. Hernandez, please.
Thank you, and thank you, council members and staff and mayor. It's a privilege to get to speak to you all today in support of the age-friendly work. A particular thank you to Councilmember Melendez for bringing this forward to discussion. Just to add some additional context, and this is probably not news to you, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, by 2034, our nation will have more people age 65 and older than people 18 and older. By 2060, nearly 1 in 4 people in the United States will be at least 65 years or older. Children being born today because of medical advances are likely to live there's a 1 in 2 chance to live to be 100 or older. So what does that mean? I'm sure we can all agree that we have love and respect for older adults, and we likely have many that are near and dear to us in our personal lives, I'm sure of it. However, this shift makes it imperative that we prepare our communities and make them more livable and age-friendly. And what does that mean, age-friendly? I think the presentation did a great job of summarizing that. Although ARP has a framework for this, and we can talk more about that in the interest of time, age-friendly community is one that ensures older adults have access to the services, to the amenities they need, and the programming that they need, and that they get a chance to actively participate in that process. And the beauty of this process, as was lined out, and really its strength, is that older adults not only participate, but guide the process. Some of the steps that were mentioned were listening sessions. ARP would help facilitate listening sessions throughout the community. We'd provide technical experts in housing and transportation to help guide those conversations as you develop your action plan. And then also a survey to our over 8,500 ARP members in the city of Vista. And you could customize that survey to what you think the needs might be. So a lot of data, a lot of information, a lot of support from AARP. And thank you for even having this discussion. I encourage you to move forward with the action plan and stand willing and able and happy to work with all of you should that be the decision. Thank you very much.
I'm Stephen Burrell. I'm from Oceanside, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to say a few comments regarding the subject. First of all, I want to thank you council members and the mayor for your public service, because really, ultimately, that's what this is about. This is about how we together work together to make this a better community for everyone. It's not exclusive to older people. It's not exclusive to any age group. It's making it a better community for everyone. So that's one of the reasons I volunteer. I'm a volunteer for ARP. And I was excited to hear about this program, and I'm working on it in Oceanside. And I want to just share something with you, too. You know, we're talking about building support and building partnerships in the community. So it just makes sense for us to collaborate, us from Oceanside and you from Vista, is many organizations go across the border. For example, NAACP, St. Francis Church, veterans groups. I could name many, many more. And what we're doing in Oceanside, we can do together here with you in Vista. So I'm even more excited to see that you're considering this as something that you might want to enter into. I strongly encourage you to do it. You know, simply put, I'll hit the highlights. Why do this? It serves as an organizing structure. I understand you have a commission on aging here. It's the perfect thing, in my opinion, for them to take and run with, if they will, and hopefully they will, once they understand it and can appreciate the potential in it. The other thing is it fosters community partnerships with the stakeholders. And through ARP, you bring all kinds of resources to the table. They've partnered with other people, like the San Diego Foundation, for example, and the Research Institute, which can provide some of the technical support that we need. And so it enables the community to make improvements that benefit all ages. And, you know, the last thing I would say is, for me personally, this is the best thing that I've been involved in many years of community involvement and engagement. And I get up in the morning and I'm motivated because I see what we can do to make this a better place for everyone. So thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of this. I know you'll make the right decision. Thank you.
Sid Rothenberg.
Yes, my name, Sydney, suggests that I'm a male. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Sid Rothenberg. I am unequivocally in favor of the City of Vista pursuing the development and adoption of the Age-Friendly Action Plan. I sent an email with suggestions to each of you prior to the meeting, which should be in your packet, I guess. In the email, I addressed potential concerns and long-range budgetary issues, which Councilmember Melendez addressed in her presentation. The City of Carlsbad draft of the age-friendly action plan serves as a good foundation from which to start, which was mentioned, and I did read the whole draft, and I was impressed for you to follow a lot of their direction. The action plan represents all ages, but focuses on seniors and the needs of seniors because of an initiative started by AARP, which is mentioned. It is not clear in the Carlsbad age-friendly, which you addressed a bit, about who makes up the team and whether a consulting firm was hired, which is sort of how the draft read. Did they use a consultant? I would like to see a Vista citizens who walk in the shoes of seniors represent the members on the team. And I do think it would be great if the council would formulate and send some direction to the Senior Affairs Commission to participate in this if you so adopt it. This is a very good time to commence drafting of an age-friendly action plan for Vista, given the current ongoing study and collaboration to upgrade the City of Vista's 2050 vision plan. Each needs to be and will influence the other. This is a very opportune time for that to happen. Thank you.
Okay, and seeing no comments from our Zoom participants, we'll go to Councilmember Joe Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much, Councilmember Melendez, for bringing this forward. Really appreciate it. I think anytime we have an opportunity to find out where our blind spots are when we're serving our community, we should definitely take it. And the fact that there are grants available for this type of program to kind of show us, where we need improvements is fantastic. I believe Mike Pacheco is on vacation, but I think we have, is Rob Anderson back there anywhere? Could we have Rob come up? I have some questions about the Carlsbad plan, and when I read the plan, I noticed that Mike Pacheco was on the list of Carlsbad Senior Center and Parks and Recreation staff. So he is our director of Parks and Rec now, which is great. So since he helped write this plan, I'm thinking it'll be fantastic to have him kind of help integrate, whatever Carlsbad did here in Vista. So kind of want to check with Rob. Mr. Anderson. I've always wanted to say that.
Good evening. So Carlsbad, Mike was involved slightly with the formation of this plan. However, it did involve the direction of the entire city. So I don't know the exact details of all his involvement, which I apologize for. I've got Kevin Granzi here, who was also part of the Carlsbad team at that point, who might be able to offer some insight.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Not much more, unfortunately.
My biggest question was, what type of collaboration was done with the city? I mean, the speakers, obviously, we want to have our senior commission. We want to get as much involvement as possible.
There was, and at the time that the draft was presented to council for adoption, I had transitioned from the senior center up to another community center, so I was out of that process for the most part. There was collaboration with their senior commission there. Basically, what they did was recommend adoption, recommend that the city council adopt it. There was a number of public meetings, public town hall type meetings, to get the seniors and the entire community involved. But the vast majority of the participants were of the senior population.
Okay, sounds good. And as far as the other question I had, which Councilmember Melendez mentioned, was the multi-generational connections. And on, one of the objectives on the community connection section was kind of bringing them together. And that was something that I was going to ask. But were you on the commission when they kind of met with the, when they brought in the young generation with the old generation? I think it's a fantastic.
I wasn't, but being part of the Parks and Recreation Department there was, at the time that the Pine Avenue Community Park, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that park. It sits on the same footprint of, Walter's familiar with it. It was designed as a multi-generational facility because it's literally 30 yards from the senior center. So once that was built, the teen programs were over there, and there was a lot of opportunity to collaborate and bring seniors over to that new community center to participate in multi-gen activities, as well as vice versa, bringing the teens, even preschool kids, over to the senior center to participate in activities under their purview.
Okay, and even though there was a grant for it, obviously, somebody mentioned long-range budgetary concerns. Once we find the holes in the system, when it comes to fixing those, are those pretty much standard items that you guys found in Carlsbad that were like in our CIP and things? Because
I wouldn't be able to answer
Okay.
or give you an educated answer.
No problem.
I would imagine that it's the standard stuff
Yeah.
that you see in any agency. And again, it is, to Councilmember Melendez's point, it is a lot more than just the senior center and the
Of
Parks and
course.
Recreation Department. It's the mobility, it's the housing, and all of those elements brought together.
Fantastic. And I also do want to just commend you guys, because when we were talking about all the different domains that are addressed in the plan, I think we have great amenities. I know that we have really good mobility with our Out and About program to kind of get seniors to and from. I know we have a great wellness caravan where they go on trips and things. And from a community standpoint, I know that all of us have went and danced with our seniors at the senior center, and you provide a lot of volunteer opportunities, but there's obviously things that we could improve. So I think bringing this forward and just making sure that we're constantly having our finger on the pulse of our senior community. I'm the closest one to being a senior here, believe it or not. I am a grandpa now, and my parents are seniors, and I want to be able to participate and be involved as I get older. So I think this is a fantastic thing to bring forward. So I definitely thank you for that. I really like the idea of the city partnership with Oceanside. Do the Parks and Recs commissioners get all together and say, "Hey, Oceanside, what are you doing?" and kind of feed off each other? We're not working in silos, right?
No, not necessarily the commissioners, but city staff. We've developed relationships with
That's what I meant. I apologize.
all surrounding cities. So absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, I thank you so much for answering all of my questions. I'd love to hear back from the rest of the council. But again, I appreciate Councilmember Melendez bringing this forward and doing the research and bringing it to our attention. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Melendez, for bringing this forward. I don't think the motion has been seconded, right? I'll go ahead and second the motion. But I do want to ask, I don't know if perhaps it would be an amendment to the motion or just an understanding if the majority of the council entertains it. But I definitely would want to have the Senior Affairs Commission have a significant role in this plan. Would it be best to include that in the motion, or it's probably a question, yeah, one of you two down there?
I can assure you that if the council gives us direction to move forward with this, we will bring it to the Senior Affairs Commission. Absolutely.
All right, so perfect. I think that's definitely a stakeholder group that would be, one, interested, and two, very necessary in helping us craft this. So, and I think it's really exciting too that we have folks on staff that were a part of it in Carlsbad. I think when I think about our senior population, I also think about the extreme heat. And I've been advocating for a lot more cool zones and whatnot since I've been elected on council. But, cool zones with some kind of intergenerational programming, I think could be really important, especially cool zones that are represented throughout the city versus in the locations that we have. So not to remove those locations, but in addition to the locations that are already cool zones. It's extremely difficult for both younger children and for our seniors when the temperatures don't, especially at night, if they're not dropping. So I think we have to be a little bit more creative in how we address that, especially some of our cool zones may close and it might still be hot, like when we get Santa Ana's and whatnot. So, and then the transportation, right, to even help seniors get to those cool zones and to other resources here in the community. I know we have the Out and About program, but I feel like we could be doing a lot more. And, it's interesting that here in this plan for the city of Carlsbad, it states that one of the goals is to provide greater opportunity for the community to become involved in active transportation planning and the development of improvements, provide safety mobility options within and around the city of, this is for Carlsbad, for all ages and abilities, and increase information and education about transportation options. I think that's great. I feel like we have a good start where we're at with our Out and About program, but I think it could really be enhanced. And I would love to see that, discussion unfold at the Senior Affairs Commission and get some recommendations. The other thing, I also really like in Domain 4, Health and Wellness, it says review, one of the goals is to review current health conditions for Carlsbad populations to identify areas of concern. This almost sounds like a vulnerability study. Is that kind of what that means? If I'm reading that correctly?
The idea here is to, as Councilman Green pointed out, expose the issues that we need to focus more on. So you could call that a vulnerability study, but the idea is to get community input and focus the resources on the aging population that we need to focus on, identifying what we're doing now, but enhancing what we need to do more of.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that sounds great because to my knowledge, we don't have any plan or document that speaks to that at the city right now. So it would be really, really important in my eyes to move something like that forward. But outside of those comments, I really appreciate, again, Councilmember Melendez, you bring this forward. And Steve, thank you so much for your advocacy and to the public for all your comments. And that's it. I second the motion.
Thank you, and thank you again, Councilmember Melendez, for bringing this forward. I think it's an excellent thing that we can be working on. I would actually also suggest that we add the Youth Advisory Commission in working with our seniors to try and find a better way to create or lessen the intergenerational gap between working together and building those relationships. I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of members from my community, which happens to have a lot of seniors, and everything from accessibility, all the things that this touch on, but accessibility, but the income risk, what you brought up, I mean, seniors are probably one of our largest populations that are at risk, and income is a huge thing, so finding programs to make sure that they have rental assistance or mortgage assistance. But I think a large piece of that, and I know Fred Tracy is doing a fantastic job with our social media, just finding a greater way to educate as well about the programs and services we do have, because a lot of people, when I bring things up to them, they're not aware of them yet. So I just want to mention that, though. The cool zones is another big thing that came up. Bus shelters, bus services in general, street lighting. Another group was our senior volunteer deputies. A lot of people don't know about them. They offer a tremendous amount of services for our community. There's also vacancies they're trying to fill. So just growing that larger conversation that we can have, I think this is going to be a fantastic plan when it comes to fruition. So thank you again for bringing it forward, and thank you to the public for coming to speak on it.
Thank you, everybody, for your support and your comments. Since it sounds like we're, have a motion and a second, I'm sure that we can vote on this and show support for it. But I did want to touch on a couple of conversation points that came up. Financing those gaps, right? We recently just approved a contract for a park master plan, right? And through that study and investigation of, are we willing to pay for this this effort to create a plan? Well, what's it going to ultimately give us? Not only will it give us a vision of what we want to do, but it could help us secure funding in the future. And I see this, throughout my participation in governing, is that when you have a plan, it gives you opportunities for grant funding, for other resources that might be available. So I'm hopeful that as we develop a plan for an age-friendly city, we might be able to secure resources to fill in those gaps. I think cool zones are really important. There was a recent story of an elderly couple in Arizona, I believe it was this week, that couldn't afford to fix their air conditioning, and they very unfortunately passed away. And so heat is a public health risk, and extreme climate changes are a public health risk. So being able to have more resilience in our community and more resources for people to prevent any kind of terrible outcomes. I love the idea of bringing on the Youth Commission as well. I think that's a lot of our youth commissioners already have initiatives to participate at the senior center, but bringing them formally into the plan, I think, would just enhance the plan so much. And yeah, there's so many different ways that this age-friendly city plan might connect to other work that the community is already doing. We obviously have some really great resources that we're offering seniors and all ages in the community, but this plan might also help us connect our park master plan and enhance our park master plan to ensure that that is more age-friendly. And of course, with Sid, your reference to the 2050 general plan update, I really appreciated that. So thank you all for participating, and thank you, Isaiah, with AARP for being here, and Steve for advocating as well. And I just really look forward to seeing how this will develop going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I certainly agree with all of my colleagues about the aims and goals of this plan to better serve our community's seniors. There's a lot of good objectives in this concept. Would we go to an RFP to find a contractor who would build this, a consultant who would write this plan for us, do the research?
Yes.
And do we know what the city of Carlsbad spent 2 years ago when they did their age-friendly action plan?
No, I have that inquiry. I know it was funded by the San Diego Foundation grant that they received, so we're hopeful that we'll receive an equal grant.
So we would expect a net zero cost to the city of Vista?
At this time, that's our expectation. I will have to circle back once we talk to the foundation and do an RFP.
Okay. To clarify what's being requested in the motion is we're asking staff to bring back a formal inquiry, bring us the price, let us know what expenditures, if any, would be necessary, and the plan to fund those expenditures. Is that?
Sure, yes. In my presentation, I touched on this a little bit. AARP offers services at no cost to the city, but we have to submit an agreement with AARP and a letter declaring that we want to pursue an age-friendly plan and that they would be participating. And then we also have the opportunity to pursue a grant, and I would absolutely want to get that update from staff, because this age-friendly plan can be as simple and as basic as we want, or it could be very, very robust, right? And we know that sometimes a robust plan might take consulting services and other resources that come at a cost. So before we move forward with any additional costs, I would want it to come back to the council. But this motion would just be to initiate the process for that.
That sounds great. I'm sure our city manager can visit with Mike Pacheco, our recreation director, and find out what his expertise is. He obviously was involved. I don't know if he's is or is not the most versed individual from Carlsbad, but can I suggest, could we invite somebody from Carlsbad who was integral to this to come and share their, this is 2 years ago, and I'd love to know what they feel were the greatest takeaways and what policies that they've implemented and how it's led them to make different policy decisions in Carlsbad. I think that might really give us a look into the future about the utility of this.
I think that's great. What's provided in the packet is the draft plan, and I believe that Carlsbad may even be close to establishing their permanent plan, right? Their final draft. So if they have insight for us to be successful, to be able to implement this with low costs to the city and for it to be fiscally sound, I think that would be great. The more stakeholder and partner engagement, the better.
Sounds good. Well, seeing no other requests to speak, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That motion is approved unanimously, and that's going to bring us back to our consent agenda. The items in our consent agenda will be approved in one motion unless a member of the public or the council elects to remove one of the items from the consent agenda. To speak on an item on the consent agenda, please submit a request card to speak to the clerk or secretary. Or if you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature or press *9. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the consent calendar. We have 15 consent items this evening, and we do have item C7 has been pulled by a member of the public. Are there any other items that the council members would like to pull? Deputy Mayor Contreras.
I will also like to pull C4, but I do make a motion to approve the remainder of the consent calendar.
Give me 1 second while I make some notes here. Councilmember Green.
I have no items to pull. I would second the motion.
Councilmember Melendez.
I'm okay with all of that. If I could possibly just make a comment on item C9, that is the always stop at Olive and Grapevine Road. I just want to say thank you to city staff for following through with that. And we're going to be able, that was not a citizen or resident initiative, that was at my request. So I really appreciate that being on here. Spoken to the residents in that area, and everybody's really excited. So thank you.
Okay, and I'd like to discuss item C15. So we'll proceed to approve the balance of the consent agenda without items C7, C4, and C15. So if you would, please cast your votes. That item is approved unanimously, our consent agenda, and that will bring us to item C4. And I think that was, who pulled C4? Deputy Mayor Contreras, would you like to be recognized with item C4?
Yeah, if there's a presentation from staff, we'll go ahead and start with that first.
Please.
We had no presentation for that item.
Awesome. Okay. Can I continue to be recognized in that case? Okay. So the reason that I pulled this is I found it a little bit. I found it very interesting, but I did find it a bit curious under the language assistance plan. The statistic here shows that in the city of Vista, there's an estimated population that's of Spanish speakers of 38,107 individuals, which represents about 35% of our community. And, you know, in looking at the plan with some of our outreach efforts and whatnot, it states that, you know, we have different social media and this whole list of things. However, if you take a look at just that category even by itself of social media, it really does, there's like almost no Spanish outreach in that. So I just wanted to highlight the fact that about 35% of our community speaks Spanish, but our social media is almost 100% in English. So I really recommend that we move up our efforts. I think it's great now that we have interpretation available at every council meeting. But I think that we could do a little bit better in our outreach to ensure that we are trying to communicate effectively with 35% of our community. Those are pretty much all the comments that I have at this point. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept this consent calendar.
Thank you. I'd agree with those remarks. Councilmember Green.
Thank you as well. I would also agree with those remarks. I just have one question on page 19 of 43 of the agenda report right here, where she was referring to the 35% Spanish speakers. It specifies that 24,587 of those Spanish speakers speak English very well. and that only 13,520 don't. Is that the breakdown of the 35% Spanish speakers? Okay, so it's 13, I mean, it doesn't matter, but it's 13,520, which is 12% of our community that actually doesn't speak English at all that we need to.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I definitely think that we need to up our Spanish intake. If 0% is where we're at, that's not where we need to be. And I know that we're definitely working on integrating our bilingual services, which is why everybody in the audience can understand me now. Hey, awesome. So anyways, I second your motion. I think it's great that you brought it forward. And I also thank staff for everything that you guys are doing to bring awareness to what's going on in our community. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Please cast your votes on item C4. That item is approved unanimously, and it'll bring us to item C7. We'd invite Brooke DeLima to come and speak about item C7, the always stop sign at Jonathan Street and Huff Street.
Hello, I'm here to share with you my experience. I live right on the corner of the street, and I do have 2 little kids, and traffic is most of the time pretty crazy. People speed, and my children one of them just learned to ride the bike, and I'm very fearful of letting them be out and about, because since we live on the corner. And I was also very for this because right up the street on Huff is the pedestrian gate for Bob Williams Park. So I see a lot of families that cross Jonathan Street, and it's a very dangerous street. And so I get concerned with the children and the pets and the family that are walking up to the park. That was it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Melendez.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brooke, for initiating this process and for taking advantage of the newer process that we have at the city to be able to have residents put forward a petition so that you can have a stop sign. I think that that's really empowering. Those neighborhoods, on Huff and Jonathan, along the Grapevine area, those are neighborhoods with families that want to be able to feel safe walking to the park and feel safe letting their kids ride their bike, as you say. So I really support this petition, and I always support any kind of intersection management that we might need, right? So we can avoid collisions, and also traffic calming in the area. So if you want to connect with me at any point on ways that we can continue to improve traffic calming in that area, I'm talking to a lot of different neighbors over there. And there's different blocks that we can use different tools to help accomplish your goals of having a safe, efficient, and walkable for all forms of mobility in that neighborhood, and get people to where they're going safely while also making space for people to just be in the neighborhood and feel safe. So thank you so much for initiating that. I'm glad to see that coming out of your block there, and I'll go ahead and make a motion to support this item.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Thank you so much for your comments. I'm always really excited to see stop signs or any kind of traffic calming come forward through our petition process. It's been very successful, and I just want to ensure that everybody knows that there is a petition out there for traffic calming. You can look at stop signs, speed humps, and different infrastructure to just make it safer. And I will share something that our traffic engineer Sam said at my District 1 traffic calming workshop, which is that the city of Vista will be doing an inventory of all the speed limits because come January of next year, there's legislation at the state that allows us to reduce speed limits. And there's certain areas in Vista where it might be appropriate to go a little bit faster, but certainly there's a lot of areas where maybe it's not as appropriate to go as fast as folks are going. And I wanted to ask, since we were just speaking about Spanish, is the petition process available in Spanish? Do we have a document that's...
It's currently in English on our website. If people using the website want to translate it into Spanish, that's an option on the website, but we can also prepare it in Spanish. That's not a problem.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I would just love to have that prepared in Spanish. I know in my district, I've spoken to a lot of folks that, fit in that 12%, where they much prefer to speak in Spanish, and they have a much higher level of vocabulary than I do. So I'm constantly learning from them. But I know that there's some team captains out there, that want to go around, and they're really good at getting their neighborhood together. And I think it's just a better tool if we also provide the petition process in Spanish. That could be extremely helpful. But anyways, I second the motion, and very excited to see all these stop signs come forward.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That item is approved unanimously. And that'll take us to item C15, and I wanted to speak on this item. I think we've made some positive improvements here in our conversation, and we're getting close to having a policy that I think we can all agree with. I would like to make sure, as I mentioned previously, that every member of the council has an equal representational allowance for the constituency that they represent. We're each receiving $2,500 annually. For the members of the council, that represents about 10 cents per constituent to communicate. For the mayor, it represents 2.5 cents. So I'd like to ask for an equal quantity of 10 cents for each constituent that I'll be communicating with, so that I could do the same communicating that the members of the council would. So I'd offer approval of this item with that included as a motion, that each member have 10 cents per citizen in their district based on the last decennial census. Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I actually agreed with you on that last time, because I understand you have 4 times the amount of constituents that we do. I would just want to make sure, because this is broken down as travel and training authorization expenses in addition to communication, that if an overage of $2,500 is used, that it is used for communication.
Very good. I would agree to that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, as long as you're not, because we use ours for lots of stuff, travel, training, gear. So yeah, as long as it's being used for communication, I'm 100% for that. And if we need to make an amendment to the resolution where we say every representative has 10 cents to, because I think that's what the 20 roughly comes down to, I think that would be fine as well. So if yours was a motion to amend to have us all be able to communicate with everybody we represent, I would second that and wait to hear from my council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Contreras.
I think I can get closer to a yes on that, but here's the thing, is that our population isn't consistent. So, at some point, right now we have it's like about 25,000 folks. I see where you get the calculation. However, does that mean that at large for the entire city, if the population increases, because you said about 10 cents, right, for all individuals, that only your budget would increase and not the council members for communication? I just want a clarification on that.
Yeah, my thought, we could either make the mayor's allowance 4 times or make it 10 cents per. And if the population increases by 10,000 in the next decennial census, then we'll draw new district lines. And as we're required by law to make the population roughly equivalent in each district. So again, each of the 4 districts will be made at that time population equivalent. This would allow each member of the council almost exactly the same amount of money. And again, if we want to make it a little simpler for the accounting, we could just do 4 times the amount. It's the same thing. Otherwise would be $20, $30, $100 difference one way or another. But almost all of our 4 districts are population equivalent as required by law. So however it would be your pleasure to do that, and whatever would win your support, I would entertain.
Yeah, so thank you for that clarification. I just wanted to make sure. I'm okay with the 4 times with the stipulation that Council Member Green put in, because I would think it would not be fair if you get to travel all over the place, and traveling's not cheap, and so we may never get to travel because all we're doing is communication. So yeah, I'm okay with that, just barely. I will be honest with you, I'm just barely okay with that. But I think that, this policy really needed an update, so I really appreciate Councilmember Melendez bringing this forward. I know it's, not an easy thing to bring forward when we talk about, money that the council individually is going to have the ability to spend. But it really is important when, we have to go to a workshop and we have to, stay at a hotel and whatnot. And $2,500, it's not a ton, but I also know that we don't get to use it all the time because the restrictions have been, it's pretty limited. So this will allow us, I think I had like $1,600 or no, it was like $1,500 left over. And I would have loved to put that into different communications. So I think now we will have the ability to really get some outreach, and maybe I can do, some more outreach in Spanish as well for my district using this communication. So, yeah, I approve. Thanks.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Does the city manager know roughly when the last time these numbers were updated, or does anybody, as far as the $2,500 is concerned?
This was brought forward by Councilmember Campbell in
2019?
2019.
We didn't change the number at that time. The number has always been 2,500 since it was brought forth by Councilmember Campbell.
Probably not updated since the policy was initially drafted.
Let's see.
Do we know roughly the population
We're
back?
talking 7 years ago. This was approved at 2,500 and hasn't been increased since.
Yeah, so and the reason I asked is just because if the population has gone up 15,000 people in the last 7 years, and I'm not saying that's an accurate number, I think that we should at some point even revisit what the council members are receiving in our districts respectively based on the number, because there are a lot of things that people may miss out on, whether it's conferences, whatever it might be, or workshops that could allow us to actually be more prepared and efficient in the jobs we do for our residents. I think that's something we should be open to exploring. As far as the $10,000, I would agree, so long as the stipulation is on there with that additional $7,500 needs to be used only for communication. Yes. I have no problem. I think it's a logical argument to make. So I would support it. So if there hasn't been a second, I will second it. And that's all. But I don't know if there's any clarification needed.
We're going to need to bring this back, and I can bring it back in 2 weeks. It's a material change to the policy, so.
I'm not asking for it to be changed unless the council is looking to do that. I just think it's something that we should explore because the population has grown.
So not on your, but for the 10,000 for the 4 times, I'm going to need to revise the policy, so it's a material change to what was published. So you can't vote on it tonight. You can't interlineate.
So it'll be final in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I'll bring it back on the 22nd for you.
Perfect.
We can do it on consent. And would you like to have the staff bring back at that time an analysis of what $2,500 7 years ago would be worth with inflationary adjustment?
I'd be interested to see what it looks like, yeah.
Okay. Very good. Councilmember Green?
I also just want to make sure that the delay doesn't, hinder any type of reimbursement for any other council members. So as long as it's approved kind of retroactively so that any prior communications or previous spendings could be compensated. Okay, thank you.
City Attorney, did you have anything else to add? Okay. With that, I don't think we need a vote on that. You've got enough direction? Okay. Very good. Okay, that'll take us to discussion item number 1, I believe, which Deputy Mayor Contreras asked to put on the agenda regarding tobacco retail licensing. If there are any members of the public that wish to speak on the item, please indicate so by using the raise your hand feature or pressing *9 on the telephone, or by submitting a request to speak card to the dais here. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Deputy Mayor Contreras asked for the item to be placed on the agenda, so we'll ask her to introduce it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you know what? We've had different discussions regarding tobacco. And so I wanted some more information about how many retailers we have. So I appreciate staff getting back some information to us. I think it's, you know, in my discussions with Mr. Connolly, I think it's interesting because if we were to prohibit any more tobacco retail licensing, that also prohibits folks that maybe sell cannabis devices. So different supplies, thank you, for cannabis, which is totally different than tobacco. So I would love to just hear a little bit more from my colleagues on council, if there's anybody here to make public comment. I don't think we need any more selling of tobacco itself. So I want to hear from my council members about that. I think this 69 is plenty. However, I think it might interest us to maybe bring back a policy that has a better defined use of what we would be saying no more to and what we would be allowing. Because I don't necessarily think that prohibiting tobacco should also be prohibiting other cannabis supplies. Especially because, you know, right now, folks that may be selling different cannabis supplies are tied to a licensed cannabis retail. So, you know, that I feel like we can maybe work around that situation because I really do see that it's a big difference between tobacco and cannabis. So anyways, that's my introduction of the subject and some of the things that I would love for my colleagues to consider. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to the next speaker.
Okay, any other council members want to be recognized before we hear from the public? We have Jennifer Gill that would like to be recognized. And if you would come forward to be prepared to speak. After Ms. Gill, we have Grisel Rosales and also Socorro Ramirez, and then we'll hear from Chris Salem on Zoom. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Jennifer Gill, and I'm the Program Manager, Vista Community Clinic's Tobacco Control Program. I wanted to thank you for the changes that you've made to the Tobacco Retail License Ordinance earlier this year and continuing the discussion on how to further protect the youth of Vista from access to harmful tobacco products. As the conversation continues, I wanted to refer you to Public Health Law Center's model policy checklist of protections that can be included in a comprehensive tobacco retail license policy, such as expanding the requirement of retailers to be further than 1,000 feet away from schools and other youth-friendly areas, such as parks and community centers, but also other retailers that have a tobacco retail license. This recommendation is not limited by the type of retailer, such as a smoke shop or tobacco-only store, but rather any retailer with a tobacco retail license. Additionally, in 2021, we conducted observations of the stores that sell tobacco in the city and observed that the most common stores that sell tobacco are gas stations with convenience stores and liquor stores. We also observed that 58% of retailers were within 1,000 feet of another retailer and 74% were within 1,000 feet of youth-friendly areas. We know that research suggests that this high density of stores may increase the likelihood of youth tobacco use, and perhaps this should be considered in your discussion of new tobacco retail licenses. I provided a copy of the checklist from Public Health Law Center, as well as a summary of those observations we've conducted. We'd be happy to assist the city with any additional resources and guidance as you continue this conversation. Please don't hesitate to contact us, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much, Grisel Rosales, followed by Socorro Ramirez.
Good evening. Thank you for listening, Mr. Mayor and council members of the City of Vista. My name is Grisel Rosales. I am a resident of Vista for over 20 years. I ask you humbly to fully support this tobacco retailer license petition to keep in control and maintain the current stores number to 69 and to not concede more license to open new stores for the sale of tobacco and other related products. I want to share some information. According to the California Healthy Kids Survey 2021, one question that was asked to students was the following: how easy is to get cigarettes? 8% of the students in 7th grade responded very easy. 14% of the students in 9th grade respond very easy. 23% of the students in 11th grade responded very easy. The same question, but with vaping, 19% of the students in 7th grade responded very easy. 30% of the students in 9th grade respond very easy. And 50% of the students in 11th grade responded very easy. Therefore, not allowing the acquisition and consumption of tobacco and other products, including vaping devices and electronic cigarettes, the City of Vista will not expose and offer these products, or at least will not facilitate them to our future generations. Again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Socorro Ramirez?
Buenas tardes, Concilio. Sí, mi nombre es Socorro Ramírez y yo estoy de acuerdo con la ciudad de Vista. Okay.
My name is Socorro Ramirez. Good evening, everyone. I agree with the City of Vista.
Que tiene la iniciativa o quieren hacer a que las licencias ya no les den más permiso a los vendedores de tabaco, porque creo que, como decía Corina Contreras, 69 tiendas de tabaco, pues creo que es demasiado. Queremos,
To limit or at least not necessarily prohibit, but at least limit the sale of tobacco licensing, because as Corina Contreras said, 69 is plenty.
Y estoy de acuerdo que ya no les den más licencia a los vendedores, o queremos un Vista libre de tabacos. No es posible, pero queremos que los jóvenes estén saludables y Vista que sea un ejemplo. Gracias.
And to not give out any more tobacco licensing, because we want, I know we can't have a tobacco-free City of Vista, but at least keep our youth safer and as tobacco-free as possible. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, and now we'll go to Chris Salem on Zoom. I think this is our second meeting on Zoom. We're still working out the technological kinks. Mr. Salem,
Yes,
Chris
could you
Salem,
guys
you
hear
there?
Could you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead. You got 3 minutes.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, for the opportunity to speak to you today. It just came to my attention today, about around 5 o'clock, the City of Vista will be discussing the additional limitations on the number of tobacco licenses for retailers. This is very concerning to me as I operate 2 gas station and convenience stores in the City of Vista. There are lots of questions that come to my mind. You know, how does this affect my current business? How does it affect potential transfer of ownership? How can this affect future development in the City of Vista for future gas stations and C-stores? How does it affect tax revenue for the City of Vista? There's so many questions. This is pretty sudden information that was given, and I wish I was better prepared for this. Today, I do not ask you guys for a yes vote or a no vote. What I'm asking for today is time. We need time to discuss the impacts that this can have on existing businesses, future businesses, and the city itself. What I do urge today is to have conversations with you guys, the council, mayor, maybe with our retail leaders and different associations like the Neighborhood Market Association, and other associations like them. I think that those type of associations could provide good insight on future impacts that this could create today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Arkan Somo. Arkan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council Member. My name is Arkan Somo, President of the Neighborhood Market Association. On behalf of the dozens of NMA members who have been doing business in the city of Vista for decades, we like to express our concerns and ask the City Council to be considerate and mindful of the unintended consequences of applying stringent limitation on tobacco licensing that will discourage future investment in the city. Mr. Salem did a good job as a retailer to express to you his concerns. And I want you to know that we represent family-owned businesses that operate independent supermarket, convenience stores and gas station, neighborhood market and liquor stores. Some of these businesses today is costing millions of dollars to go through the permitting and building process. And just imagine if they are told you cannot apply for tobacco license anymore and give up anywhere from 25 to 35% of your sales. I can guarantee you these potential businesses will go to another city that will allow them to apply for these privileges and sell these tobacco products legally. And I also like to get the attention of the City Council that hundreds of NMA members who have seen the adverse effect of the county limitation, and I hate to see the City of Vista losing potential investment, as was articulated by Mr. Chris Salem. So, and besides that, I really have more questions about what is the data that I hope the staff have put together to justify the first stopping it at the current number, which is 69, and I hope you guys gonna grandfather that. My understanding, and I read the report, there's somebody also in the process of applying. I hope you give them that privilege. But what is the logic? Have there studies that have been done in comparison to other cities they put cap? And what was the ramification of what, like Mr. Salem said, about the tax revenue, about discouraging investment and revitalization into the city? So as you see, Mr. Mayor and council members, there are a lot more questions that we have on behalf of our members that we don't have answers to. I was hoping there'll be in the report some kind of study have done, which I have not seen. So please, all we ask you is to be mindful, take a little bit time. We would love to be at the table and help the city staff to put these numbers together and have an open dialogue. And on that note, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you and with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jamie or Jaime Rojas. Can you hear us?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
My name is Jaime Rojas with the National Association of Tobacco Outlets. Greatly appreciate the time here to speak on this issue. As we heard Mr. Somo and Mr. Salem speak earlier on the issue, we represent retailers throughout the country, specifically here in Vista. We're dealing with a highly regulated industry. Just as you know, recently the state passed a state flavor ban back in December of 2023. Many of our retailers and most of our members follow the rules and regulations, check IDs, and their last line of defense for even you trying to purchase products that they're underaged. Just recently, the FDA, and looking back online on their website, they do an annual sting operation, and 95% of the city's retailers have been successful in passing that, checking IDs and verifying, making sure that those buying tobacco products are of legal age. Many of these retailers also hire within the community. Many of these retailers pay their taxes and also are an integral part of the community at local schools, various organizations and clubs. All we ask is that you include the retail community in this process because we need all stakeholders involved in this. Our biggest worry is that you open this window in a highly regulated industry. What other things or what other agendas are included? All we ask is that you include, maybe set up seminars and workshops with all sides and all stakeholders of the city to be able to be inclusive in exactly what the end result's going to be. We greatly appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Our final speaker is Judy Strang. Judy, can you hear us? Judy Strang, can you hear us?
Good evening. I was just waiting for the unmute button to show up. Thank you, Vista City Council. Thank you for this opportunity to share some thoughts. And I really appreciate that you have this hybrid opportunity for those of us who've long worked in public health to share some thoughts and perceptions. In my personal case as a public health educator, a PTA leader, and a parent who has several grandchildren living in Vista, I care passionately about the health of our young people and the health of our community members. And I think your observation that no one needs more than 69 smoke shops or tobacco retailers in the city, and the idea of a cap is certainly that time has come. And I think it's important to understand where they're located and any information that we can receive regarding where they're located so that they are not one next to each other or in the same block and neighborhood and cause those concentrations within neighborhoods, but also distances from youth-sensitive areas beyond just school. It's important to remember what a storefront does is it normalizes its use. It's probably the largest billboard you could ever buy is to have a tobacco store and its signage in your block and neighborhood. So I'd like to add my voice of support to the idea of caps and to take a good look at what distances could be suggested to be discussed, and perhaps we can increase the amount of spaces to youth-sensitive issues. And I would like to just share with you a quote that my husband is a pharmacist, and he often reminds me that just because something is legal doesn't remove the harm. It just changes the legal consequences, usually for those who promote, produce, or in other ways profit financially from this legalized substance or activity with little or no regard for the negative impact on individuals or society at large. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts with you this evening.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing this forward. I actually had spoken with a few different cannabis retailers and dispensaries. We have 11 within our city that are good players from a business standpoint, and a lot of them were talking about this, is they don't even want to sell tobacco. They simply want to have the opportunity to sell additional products, for cannabis, basically, which I feel like from a smoke shop standpoint, if you're selling, supplies for the use of cannabis, and it's going to be near, those dispensaries, and we keep them basically the same distance, 1,000 feet away from schools and things like that. I would definitely like to separate the definition of a smoke shop per se, where I'm fine with grandfathering 69 licenses there. And that's something I want to make sure that our retailers and our current businesses know is I'm not here to shut down any current businesses. I'm not here to put any additional overlays on additional businesses. I just think that, 69 tobacco retailers is one for every 1,600 residents. I don't know what the data is on how many tobacco smokers we have here in the city of Vista, but I would assume they wouldn't have a problem getting their supplies with having 69 outlets to get them. So I'm fine with that. I know that we also put additional penalties against retailers when it comes to selling to underage, residents, because we're trying to protect the youth. And I think this is another step in the right direction when it comes to protecting our youth. So I do think that keeping those 69 licenses grandfathered in is something that we should do as a council, because we don't want to devalue any of our residents' businesses that they currently own. And in the event they want to sell their business or something, they should definitely have that right. And I don't feel that the government should be able to, take that away. But again, as businesses come in, they would definitely still have to go through the same approval process per se and make sure they were doing it. But I don't see too many unforeseen consequences because it doesn't sound like we're trying to shut down any. We're just saying we don't want to give out any new, retail licenses from that standpoint. One question that I have, and I'm going to pose this to our Deputy Mayor Contreras, is there any particular type of business that you frown on more from like a smoke shop standpoint, or is it just any tobacco retailer in general? Because, there's grocery stores and like, the AMPMs and like the big people. Typically, I don't know that the stings have, as many complaints in those areas. But again, I don't think that a grocery store is waving tobacco in people's face as much as buy a dozen eggs for $4.99. So is there any room for like new supermarkets or anything like that wanted to sell tobacco? I'm just asking for a friend, which is myself, actually.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer the question. That's a great question. And to answer the question, I am against any more retail sales of tobacco. In general, the data, unfortunately, can be found in the caskets and tombstones of folks that have smoked, and it's there's so much data to show how dangerous tobacco is, not only for the user, but for more. So even if it's
a
in a
moratorium
grocery,
on all new tobacco licenses.
that's my stance.
Okay.
I don't know how the rest of the council feels if there's a majority for that. But yeah, that's where I'm at. And
No
I'm
problem.
tired of all the trash too. Cigarette butts everywhere.
Yeah, no, cigarette butts are definitely rough to pick up. So I definitely am into protecting youth. I have 4 kids, 2 grandkids, and work with tons of kids throughout the community. I'm a huge advocate when it comes to my community and my youth. So I'm definitely for that. One question that I have, and, we're not making a policy, we're just having a discussion for the record. So staff is going to come back with some additional data, but I do want to make sure that it's not going to hinder a new shopping center or like a grocery store to come to town. Because as you know, we have, what we've all called a food desert per se over there in that Santa Fe Civic Center area. And if a grocery store actually wanted to come in and said, hey, the only way we're going to come in is if, we make some, as far as our profit margin goes, I'd want to see if there was any type of special circumstance or something that we could do, because grocery stores are very important to our community, and we clearly don't have enough of them in my neck of the woods. I got one around the corner from my house, which is great, but if you live on this side of town, it's kind of hard to get to. So I that's the only real unforeseen consequence I see, is that whatever grocery store, hopefully our economic development department can bring in here, let's go Larry, that grocery store would want to do business with us. So whatever their profit margin is, or whatever that would hurt their profit margin that would make a grocery store not want to come here, I would be against that. But when it comes to additional gas stations, liquor stores, things that are shoving the product in youth spaces, I'm 100% behind that. I also am 5,000% behind specifying the difference between a tobacco retail shop and a cannabis supply smoke shop, which I guess they could call it. So I actually just went up to CannaCon 2023 because I was wondering what they were doing about not having tobacco, because it's a big thing. Hey, there's no tobacco leaves to roll your stuff, and they've come up with a lot of different things. Hemp and palm and different things that aren't that tobacco. So there are other avenues that aren't that are geared more towards just that particular industry that is focused towards medicinal and adults and not children. And I think as a council, we've done a great job keeping those businesses away from our schools. I recently met with our superintendent, and he actually commended us on how great we've done with keeping those businesses out of the face of our youth, which is great. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. I'd love to have staff come back and tell us what the most practical plan is, but I do want to make sure that obviously anybody who owns a tobacco retail license right now, if nothing else, we just made your business more valuable because we're not bringing in additional tobacco competition for you. You're the tobacco retailer. So, as far as the Neighborhood Market Association goes, they should be stoked because, no more competition for their neighborhood markets from that aspect. So if my council is okay with, making sure our current businesses aren't affected. I'm great, and I really appreciate you bringing this forward, and I look forward to hearing from the other council members on the stage. Thank you so much.
I would just add to that I do think we should include language that specifically indicates the right of a business owner to transfer a license to a qualified purchaser of their business, because individuals have invested their life savings. I think of the gentleman his name is who is an immigrant to our country, who owns the ExxonMobil station in Councilmember O'Donnell's district. He works there on site every day in that business. We have a lot of small family business owners. Mr. Somo represents very small business owners, family business owners in our community. And so I would want to make sure that individuals who've invested their life savings and work into a business don't have the value of their business diminished at the time that they want to sell it, because that could be a significant diminishment in revenue and would hurt the sale value. So I would want to see that. And then I had to note comedically that 10 years ago, business owners said that their glass pipes were definitely for tobacco and not for marijuana, so that they could sell them. And now it seems businesses need to say this is definitely for marijuana, not for tobacco. I mean, it's not funny, but it's a little funny. So, we do have a thriving cannabis industry, and I think your point about defining what is cannabis and what is, because right now, and this is something our city manager brought up in some preliminary discussions, is the fact that we don't distinguish between, a pipe for smoking tobacco and a pipe for smoking marijuana. And frankly, looking at some of the pipes for cannabis, which no knock on, but I'm not a consumer of, I wouldn't recognize all those pipes. I only recognize the kind of pipes my father smoked tobacco from in the 70s. So, like Sherlock Holmes. Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. Do we know, I believe this was in our last packet information, I should have asked before, do we know how many retailers are in Oceanside and Carlsbad and San Marcos? Or roughly? Okay. I'm just curious, because I don't believe that there'd be a huge economic issue with limiting the number to 69. To Councilmember Green's point, if a grocery store is coming here, I don't think that their sales are directly derived from tobacco. However, I don't know, so I'm not going to knock the idea. But in a very special circumstance, I would be open to that. At the same time, I really don't want any more tobacco retailers here. I mean, 69 right now, I was under the idea of maybe we could lower grandfather these in and lower it, but to the point about making sure that future businesses are not impacted negatively. And there are a lot of local business owners that are very ingrained in our community and have been for a long time. So I would be open to keeping it at 69. But defining what a tobacco shop is or what it's going to be for cannabis sales or whatever it might be from there. I do want to just point out, one, this will not impact current tobacco retailers. We are not taking your license away. We are not trying to take your license away. To the point the mayor made, I would just ask, when it comes to purchasing a bar or the availability to sell alcohol or liquor, what does that process look like? Does it transfer, or do you have to go back through the process?
It's transferable generally.
Okay. So I would be open to that as well, just because it's in line with what we already have as a standard here in Vista. From the timing standpoint, I understand that people may have just found out about this evening, but this conversation started back in February. So we have had 7 months to discuss it. We had a very lengthy discussion up here back in March, and this is not even the final discussion to have it. So come speak with us. I mean, you're probably not going to shift my mind on it, but I'm glad to listen to individuals from our community that want to share their concerns and share their voice. You have the right to do that. I'm always open to listening. But my largest concern about the adverse effects aren't on the new retailers or the economic status of our communities. It's on the youth having access to tobacco and nicotine products. I shared a story with everybody last time we talked about it. I'll share it again because it is unfortunate to see my father on the back end of his life having just been diagnosed with emphysema. He's 77 years old. He had his first cigarette when he was 11, was able to buy cigarettes when he was 12. So you want to do the math on that. He's been smoking since he was 12 years old. He is 77 now. In a best case scenario, should he change every habit he has in life, which I am just as stubborn as he is, and he probably will not, he may have 3 to 5 on the front end, 10 years if he's lucky on the back end, if he were to stop everything right now. So the impacts when smoking at a young age, or even now having access to vapor or other nicotine products, is my larger concern versus new retailers that would come in to the city of Vista. Also, having 69 already, I am going to guess that we probably have more tobacco retailers in the surrounding communities. Again, I don't have that information, but I'm pretty sure that that's accurate. So those are my larger concerns. I am all for grandfathering in the 69. I mean, if we have a really, really extreme case to where it is a grocery store in a food desert area, you might be able to convince me, but outside of that one stipulation, my answer is no. So aside from that, do we know what the tax revenue is every year just off tobacco sales?
We don't have that figure.
Okay. Somebody had asked what the logic is. Tobacco kills people. That's my logic. I don't mean to be coarse, but that's the reality of what it is. There's nothing healthy or safe or a good amount to consume when it comes to tobacco products. So that is just based on my logic with that. So to answer that question, I am very passionate about this because I also, in my youth, had easy access to cigarettes. They were not hard to get. I used to go to the 78 gas station on 87th, and we were probably 12, 13, 14 years old. Anybody could walk in there and get them. So it is a very real thing that happens in a lot of communities. It's not just unique to Vista, and anything we can do to stop that, I am all for. So I am very open to having a conversation about defining the details of what we're looking for here, but I think that we have had a very concise discussion about what it is we're looking for and what it is we're not looking for. And I look forward to further discussion from the council and having it come forward so we can move forward on this.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Thank you so much to my colleagues. It sounds like you're not necessarily looking for a motion, but you have ample direction. It sounds like there's a lot of us here on the council who want to see a moratorium. I don't actually think, even if we wanted to, even if we had a majority to tell the 69 retailers, like, you can't have any more tobacco, I don't even think we could do that, right? That's legally not within the realm of possibility. So I'm okay with the transfer of license and with grandfathering these 69. So my question would be, after tonight, is it safe to say that we're not going to have not one more and it's going to stay at 69?
Until the moratorium's actually passed, there could be, but I don't believe there's any projects in, there's one that's underway that has a potential for a tobacco retail. So
at most, it might be 70.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to be clear with the public about what we can and can't do. So we're moving as fast as we can, which is this is lightning speed for government here. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear about that. And we won't be able to have a moratorium until it actually comes back to the council. There's a majority that votes on it, and then it's what, 31 days? 30 days, okay, and then it will be enacted. So if any additional applications come in within that time, unfortunately, we don't have authority to say no until that moratorium takes place. But it seems like we're going to be able to move this forward as fast as we can. I want to say, I actually really appreciate you bringing up grocery stores, because we definitely do have a lot of food insecurity and not enough access in all of Vista. There's certain areas, that really have lost access to good foods. However, I will say that there are plenty of stores grocery stores that don't even sell tobacco. So, I don't know. I appreciate that you brought it up. But I stand in line with the comments that Councilmember O'Donnell said, that unless it's like an extreme emergency, which I don't think there will be, I'm okay with 100% limiting the retail licenses to the 69 and not having any additional outlets. Yes.
So on that point, in order to make any moratorium you may pass, kind of more bulletproof, I would suggest not having any exclusions up front. You would have to make specific findings why you're treating one business different than the others, for the grocery store. But having a moratorium, if you have a grocery store vendor who is interested in coming, then at that point, and they do require a tobacco license in order to open a Vista, they can always come back. We can bring it back to you and discuss it at that point.
Okay. Mr. O'Donnell has a clarifying question. I want to continue speaking, but I think your question might be important, so.
So Walter, just for clarification purposes, what is the difference between a moratorium and a cap? Because the language of the moratorium, to me, implies that even if there is a future business that would like to purchase another business, we have said no to any other tobacco licenses. So I just want to make sure that our language is clear on what we're asking, unless I have a misunderstanding of what that is.
No, I think that's a good question. Moratorium is more used in the planning where you're putting a pause on an issuance while you research it, and it's not a permanent. So you are talking more of a cap, a fixed number. So a cap would be probably the better term to use.
Thank you. I appreciate that question. So it's a cap, not a cap like climate action plan, but a cap to limit any more retailers. And I think it's, there also has been a majority of the council that wants to ensure that we do have a separate definition for cannabis, smoke shops and whatnot. Yes.
So we'll have to take a look at that and research it more, but any tobacco retailer and paraphernalia retailer in the state of California has to get a cigarette and tobacco retail license from the state. The state's definition of tobacco products includes vaping devices and any paraphernalia that could be used with tobacco. So it covers paraphernalia. So whether we can accept that out, we'll have to take a look, but the state license does, if they do have a state license, they are allowed to sell it. So, they would have tobacco and paraphernalia on the same license. So whether we can separate it out when the state doesn't, that is a question we will have to take a look at.
Okay. Yeah, I look forward to that coming back before the council for us to have yet another robust discussion. But if for some reason, I just want to be on the record that if for some reason we can't separate it, that I think we just need to keep the cap at 69 regardless. I would hope that we are able to separate it, and I think that there is a good possibility that we could separate it.
So based on what I'm hearing today, I'm actually anticipating basically bringing you back a fully flushed out ordinance for adoption. And then if there's further discussion, then we can take it back and change it based on your discussion. But I think there's enough direction from council to give you a full flushed out ordinance at this point.
That would be great. Thank you. That's all from me.
Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you. I'll make my comments brief. I think I generally agree with everyone. I'm glad that we're parsing out, what could be an impact for our business community. I think it's rather unfortunate that we have a culture of addiction that creates dependencies for the whole community, so that there are people in our community who have businesses where they depend on someone's tobacco use in order to sustain themselves. And there are many poisons in our communities. Tobacco products are very dangerous for the human body. They are radioactive, and they have many other harmful effects to them. So the motivation for me is public health, always, and also safety and sensitivity to the youth. I think one of the speakers brought up a concern about youth-sensitive areas are not just schools, and I definitely agree with that. Our young people in our community, they deserve to have a safe environment anywhere in our community, not just at school, not just at home, not just at specific programs, but I want kids to feel safe throughout our entire community. And I appreciate and greatly respect retailers that do abide by the law. And at the same time, I also know that we conduct decoy operations that indicate regularly that our retailers selling tobacco in the city of Vista are violating the law and selling to minors. So we must scrutinize the sale of these poisonous products in our community, and we must regulate the sale of these poisonous products in our community to keep our community safe. And I think when we are able to receive something back from staff, it'll be a very balanced and reasonable update to our policies and allow us to retain the businesses that are already here and move forward in a more healthy way by putting a cap for any future sales, any future retailers. So I appreciate this discussion, and I'm looking forward to the next iteration. Thank you.
Okay, and that'll take us to item D2, our next item regarding the American Rescue Plan Act, Coronavirus Rental Assistance Program. If there are any members of the public that wish to speak on the item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature or by pressing *9 or submitting a request to speak card here at the dais. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Our Homeless Service Program Manager, Jonathan Lung, will present the staff report.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. This item describes a rental assistance program to be implemented in support of the strategic plan to address homelessness in Vista. The strategic plan operates to achieve its 3 goals of preventing homelessness, which administers programs focused on promoting self-sufficiency and stabilizing housing and/or employment for people at risk of becoming homeless, improving quality of life, which includes assisting those who are experiencing homelessness and mitigating public health and safety impacts, and reducing homelessness, which focuses on long-term, lasting solutions to connect people to housing in order to make homelessness a rare, brief, and one-time experience. A rental assistance program would support the strategic plan strategy initiated in the adoption of the plan as a homelessness prevention pilot program. At the direction of this council and success of the pilot program, the strategy has been updated to an ongoing homelessness prevention strategy, which will include the rental assistance program discussed tonight. The strategy of homelessness prevention provides meaningful intervention when Vista residents fall into housing instability and become at risk of homelessness. The Regional Task Force on Homelessness reports that between fiscal years 2020 and 2022, there was an 18% increase in first-time homelessness in San Diego. The goal of homelessness prevention is to provide assistance to keep residents from losing their housing, with the goal of decreasing the rate of households entering homelessness below the rate of households exiting homelessness. Between August 2020 and August 2022, the city's homelessness prevention pilot program was funded by a state allocation which administered $192,000 to support 59 Vista families at risk of homelessness with rental assistance. The pilot program was also supported by a second funding source of CDBG CV funds, which administered $143,000 to support 37 Vista families who had become housing unstable. Both programs were administered by North County Lifeline and provided intervention to a total of 294 Vista residents to keep them from becoming unhoused. Data based on responses received from the pilot program participants show that 88% of families remained in their homes 6 months after the end of the programs, and after 13 months, 75% of families remained in their homes. The pilot program was funded by one-time funding opportunities that have exhausted, and staff has identified a new funding source to continue rental assistance in Vista. This rental assistance program will be funded by American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds. Categorized as a metropolitan city, the city of Vista was allocated $26 million in ARPA funds in 2021. Staff has identified $1.4 million of Vista's ARPA allocation that are available for reallocation towards a rental assistance program, which will be administered by a contractor solicited with an RFP. This program will assist Vista households with rent, mortgage, and utility assistance, including arrears, delinquent property taxes, and counseling and legal aid to prevent eviction. To be eligible, applicants must be within the income threshold of 60% area median income or less, have qualified for unemployment benefits or experienced a reduction in household income, incurred significant costs or experienced other financial hardship during or due, directly or indirectly, to COVID-19, and can demonstrate a risk of experiencing homelessness and housing instability. Acceptable documents to demonstrate a decrease in household income include termination notice, payroll check or pay stubs, bank statements, medical bills accompanied by medical provider's notice of inability to work or required time off, signed letter from employer explaining applicant's changed financial circumstances, unemployment award letter, and self-certification of applicant's inability to pay the next month rent, mortgage, and/or utility bill. Assistance will be awarded to applicants whose residence is within Vista city limits on a first-come, first-served basis. Awards will be granted up to $10,000 and 6 months per household. Funds will be dispersed directly to the landlord, mortgage servicer, property manager, or utility provider. No funds will be dispersed directly to applicants. Prior to the release of funds, the housing or utility provider must furnish a current City of Vista business license, if applicable, W-9, and a signed affidavit affirming that no other payments are or will be collected for the same months of assistance. The applicant must submit an executed rental assistance agreement that includes a signed affidavit affirming that they are not receiving assistance from any other sources. A 30-day RFP will be published in the coming weeks, and staff will return to seek this council's approval of an agreement with the rental assistance administrator in early October. This concludes staff's presentation on implementing a rental assistance program in alignment with a strategic plan to address homelessness in Vista, and I'm available for any questions.
We have several public speakers. We'll start with the public speakers, begin with Kendine Thomas, followed by Veronica Villa and Blanca, is it Horacha? Very good. So Kendine, would you please come and address us? And Veronica, if you want to come forward and be prepared to speak, followed by Blanca.
Good evening, Mayor Franklin and council members. Bear with me, I'm not.
Just pull that microphone close to you.
Okay. Good evening, my name is Kendine Thomas. I'm a housing navigator with Exodus Recovery, homeless outreach team.
Speak right into that microphone.
I'm not, you're not.
There you go.
Is it better?
Please.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to speak on behalf of the Rental Assistance Program. This program has, I'm the housing navigator, so I deal with housing of our clients here in Vista. The program is vital to many families here in the city of Vista. The rental assistance program will reduce the number of families that's living in shelters, on the streets, in overcrowding situations, and also in their cars. I'm going to share just a brief personal story with you that touched me this year. I got the opportunity and the privilege to assist a young single mother. She's working full-time with her 3 children. We're living in a car. They flee domestic violence. One of the children contracted pneumonia while living in the car because earlier this year the weather was really bad. It was cold, and he almost lost his life. The family is now housed and doing well. With the support that the mother was given and she obtained her medical assistance certificate. She's now doing really well. Has made tremendous progress in taking care of, sustaining her household and how she's doing right now. This year, through Exodus, we were able to house and assist 10 to 15 families, 27 children using the rental assistance program. Rents are high and they're getting higher. So getting into an apartment can be very difficult for many families. With more funding, we will be able to assist many more families here in Vista who just need a chance to get into housing and get back on their feet. All of the families that we are working with are employed full-time, but still cannot afford to get into an apartment without assistance. As you know already, most apartments are asking renters to at least make 3 times the amount of the rent. Deposits are 1 to 2 months rent. It depends on the credit score if they pay less or more deposit, but majority of our clients unfortunately have to pay the 2 months rent deposit. A 1-bedroom unit here in Vista rents for roughly $20.
Thank you very much. I apologize. That's, yeah. Our next speaker is Veronica Villa.
To be here today, council members and the mayor. I too am a housing navigator with Exodus Recovery Homeless Outreach Team, and we are here to share why the Rental Assistance Funding Program is extremely important and why Exodus Recovery would like to be a collaborator and continue to build our robust partnerships with the city and the community partners. Given that we can get individuals and families into housing, we need to be able to keep them in housing. The cost of homelessness quickly racks up for a city, includes cost of healthcare, social welfare, and the justice system. Providing homes for those that are homeless saves cities money each year. 4 reasons why there's no end in sight and the importance of funding. First, more people than ever are being housed, but an even higher number are falling back into homelessness. Contributing factors are due to lack of affordable housing, physical, mental illness, disabilities, substance abuse, job loss, or decline in income. Second, rents are out of reach for many, and millions of affordable places have disappeared. Here in the city of Vista, renters are currently asking for 3 times the rent amount, making it unaffordable to many. Low-income apartments currently have a 1-year waiting list at least, and a limited number of resources, making it difficult to find affordable housing. Third, zoning laws and local oppositions make it hard to build housing for low-income renters. Land use and zoning policies that include affordable housing and create racial, economic, and housing segregation, high cost of living, inadequate wages, wealth and income inequality, a safety net that does not provide sufficient housing or supportive services. And the 4th reason, the pandemic aid programs that helped keep many people housed are winding down. However, as of July 13th, more than 45,000 renters were still waiting for their applications to be reviewed, and nearly a third of applicants to California's Emergency Rent Relief Program have been denied assistance. The time to act is now before the cycle of homelessness repeats, causing trauma and costing local cities more money. Exodus Recovery is committed to continue to collectively work towards solutions that save the city money and help break the cycle of homelessness. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Blanca Horacha.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Blanca Huaracha, and I'm here because I just want to say thank you to this program because sadly I was homeless last year with my 4 kids, and they helped me a lot. And I got to the program because I did give up on life. I didn't want to go on no more because I couldn't afford to live anymore. And me and my kids went into deep depression, and I ended up at Exodus, and they did help me a lot, and I finished phlebotomy. I finished my school, and I ended up finding 2 jobs. And yeah, rent is really bad right now for a lot of people out there. There's a lot of homeless people, and thank God my kids are back to school now. They were not at school. They were out of society. They don't like people. They isolated themselves. They wouldn't get out of the room. They wouldn't talk to nobody. They wouldn't go to school. So now we found a school that it's called Learn for Life, and they've been helping them a lot. And then Exodus helped me not to give up on my kids and myself. So they helped me to finish my school, what I am. I'm going to medical school, and I'm thankful for them because I have a home now. And I'm not going to hotels and shelters with my kids. And now they see that I did call CPS on myself because I got to the point that I thought I was not a good parent. But when I got to Exodus, they made me think that I still have life, that I could, keep going. And they basically gave me my life back. And yeah, I think they deserve to have a lot of support to help a lot of homeless single moms out there that they not only give up on life, but they also go into drugs, depression, which leads to the kids to see that parents do that, and then the kids don't want to live anymore too. My son wanted to stop eating, wanted to stop going to school. He didn't want to do anything no more. He has anxiety, so that kind of, made me feel like I wasn't doing a good job. But I'm thankful for God and for them that they did open my eyes and help me get a place to stay, and now we can call it home. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your story with us, Blanca. Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Blanca. I know it takes a lot of courage to come up and speak in front of us, but when we hear that we helped 96 families, it doesn't really tell the story of actually who we helped and knowing the difference that was made in your lives. You can't put a price tag on that, and thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. It definitely re-solidifies our need for a program like this. It makes it easier for the council to make a decision to make sure that families like yours are taken care of. So thank you so much for that. This program is definitely something that I support, 100%. I know that as a council, we looked at all the programs and how all the funds were allocated in our strategic plan to address homelessness. And as a council, we said, hey man, this is the most effective program. Dollar for dollar, the amount of people that we actually got to help with these funds was amazing. And out of $334,483, we helped 294 Vista residents. That's only 23.89% of $1.4 million, which I'm hoping can help about 400 families and maybe 1,200 Vistans. And to be able to allocate funds in that type of way to help that many families is amazing. I was raised by a single mom, and before my mom met the man that I call my dad, I had 12 different residences between kindergarten and 7th grade. And if you could imagine moving, every year to a different house, and we knew that our bills were due, and the red note came on our door. We had 48 hours to pay the water. I mean, you know that now. But I'll tell you what, we didn't have any programs like this. And I spent a couple nights in Coco the Pushmobile, which, my family was, we had to push our car to start. It was kind of fun. We always try to make fun out of things. But having no programs like this, and, that was, 30 years ago. But knowing that these programs are available for families like yours really makes me proud to be a public servant, is because this is really what our job is to make a difference in the community. And I'm sure that all my council is going to support this program because it's a fantastic program, and we can actually see that we have tangible results and we're making a huge difference in the lives of families. So again, Blanca, thank you so much. Exodus, thank you for your work. I know North County Lifeline spearheads the allocation of these funds, and I think that they did a fantastic job with it. Also, thank you so much, council, for collectively coming together and just realizing how important allocating rental assistance funds are, because it's a huge deal. The other thing that I wanted to just kind of point out that was in here from a chart standpoint was the actual AMI, the area median income. And this is geared towards those residents that are making 60% of the area median income. And if you could just put the slide up there real quick one more time, just so they could kind of see. A family of one, a single guy making $57,900 per month, which is just under $5,000 a month, would qualify for this program. A family of three that makes $74,460 per month would qualify for this program. A family of four at $82,000 per month. I have a son-in-law and a daughter who have 2 kids who make well below that, and knowing that there's programs like them out there that they could possibly get into their own residence someday with the help of a municipality is something that I think is remarkable. And the fact that the City of Vista is doing this is really, tip of the spear type of stuff. And the last stat I just wanted to state is that 18% increase in first-time homelessness between 2020 and 2022. A lot of these people have never struggled financially like they're struggling right now with inflation and, the economy and COVID. There's just so much going on right now, and it's more important than ever to make sure that we have funds available for our most vulnerable residents. So, Jonathan, you've been a driving force behind this, working so hard on our strategic plan to address homelessness. So thank you so much. I flex every time I go by your office because you work hard so strong, but I really appreciate this. And I can't tell you, this is one of the proudest things as a council member that I'm going to get to approve, because I know the lives that it's going to change. And someday some Vista boy might come back and, thank City of Vista for helping pay rent a couple months. And it's a really, really big deal to be able to take that burden off families. So thank you so much. And thank you again, council. Greatly appreciate it.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Thank you to Exodus and Blanca for coming forward and providing your testimony. I also want to thank Councilmember Melendez, because I think she made this a motion to make sure that we had a vote on it. And that's why we have it today. And the council very much, collectively wanted to move forward with programs that work. And these stats are incredible. And the fact that these are Vista residents, 100%, that we're able to help. Councilmember Green, I'm glad you brought up the AMI. If we could bring that slide back up. I do have a question, because when we're looking at affordable housing, we go up to 120% AMI, right? So is there a reason why we're looking at 60% of AMI versus 120% or lower? Especially because folks, I think, right, people are going to be capped at $10,000. So I am concerned that across the board, with the cost of living just going up between rent and transportation and food and different utilities, that even folks that are considered a little bit higher income may have a situation where they can't afford to make, rent next month. So if you could just explain to me why we're looking at 60% AMI and lower.
Yeah, so HUD defines low income up to 80% AMI. Between 80 and 120 is what's being called middle income. 60% AMI is double what the previous pilot program assisted with, which was 30% AMI. We limited it to 60% just to make sure that those with the most need would be addressed first. If ARPA guidelines does allow up to 80% AMI for rental assistance, so if at a later date it's determined that there is still additional funding left, we could increase the AMI limit.
I personally would like to increase it to, I don't know what my colleagues would say, but I want to increase it to 80% AMI. If you're a single parent with children and you have a little bit of a higher income, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a higher quality of life. So I want to make sure that we're trying to capture as many folks that we can to prevent homelessness. The other thing that I want to state to my colleagues, and hopefully, there's a consideration of this, the 1.4 million that we're putting aside is great, but I think that because we've seen so much success, even after a year, that folks are still able to maintain their living situation. I think it would behoove the council to have an annual appropriation just to make sure that we constantly have a big enough pool, and I think something even as small as $150,000 a year, just to continue to replenish that, could become really important, because the economic situation, we all hope that it would continue to get better, but in fact we're starting to see that it's getting worse, and there is the possibility that folks get laid off in the coming years. So I want this fund to be something that lasts until we have zero homelessness, right? So I think it is appropriate and important and responsible and responsive to continue to fund this program, even though we have, ARPA funds that are going to help us out. I think a small annual appropriation of about $150,000 could ensure the longevity of this. And I just want to make sure it gets programmed into our budgeting. We're fortunate as a city to have been very prudent and have, different businesses that help fund us through tax revenue. And I just want to make sure that a program of this caliber that has helped so many folks, that we can get more folks that 80% AMI and lower, and also make sure that the program is able to be sustained for, as long as it takes. So those are my recommendations. Thank you.
I apologize. I misspoke earlier. It's ARPA guidelines allows up to 65% AMI.
Okay, yeah, whatever we can, the maximum I think is important. And in addition, so let me just say back to that, if the city is putting its own funds in, we are not tied to ARPA guidelines. So, I think that's just more conversation that we need to have as a council, because I am really concerned about folks that, make a decent amount of money, but as soon as there's people at 120% AMI are still living paycheck to paycheck. They're much closer to homelessness than they are to having a mansion, a forever mansion. So I want to make sure that we are able to capture as many folks as we can to help prevent homelessness. So I'm just going to throw that out there for my council colleagues if there's any additional discussion, but that would be definitely 65% for ARPA, and then an open discussion for, having a continual amount of funding per year. And if there's a higher percentage of AMI that would still be considered, needing affordable housing, that 80 to 120%, or I guess 66% to 120%, what you all think about that. So thank you.
I'd like to offer a thought there. You mentioned $150,000. These funds, we have until 2026 to disperse these funds, which we received through the Federal American Recovery Act plan. If we broke this into three equal numbers, it's about $466,000 a year. If, however, we were to invest these funds into, we put about $13 million into stormwater. What that did is that enabled us to free up future cash flows so that we had more dollars that are already coming in, but that were going to be needed for capital improvement projects. It freed up those future cash flows for other programs and priorities of the council. We could ensure with this $1.4 million as much as 10 years of operation of this fund if we were to allocate the $150,000 per year over the next 3 years and then take the balance of these funds and allow staff to propose a way to reduce an anticipated capital expenditure for which we're legally allowed to use these funds. And then we could put into, at that time, into our budget, an annual line item, recognizing that we've freed up 10 years of funds. So there's a way to make these funds last. It's just the way we structure it. So I would ask if you would consider doing that. You can ask Mr. Conley about that, but I'm getting that in consultation with him. I would like to see a little bit more detailed reporting. Again, we're never asking for personally identifiable information ever. We're never asking for that. But I would like to see how often the funds were used for first and last month assistance versus an emergency intervention. I think we're probably more likely to be successful, and I'd like to see the numbers. When I say successful, I mean if we have a woman who's fleeing domestic violence and we can give her first and last month and help her get into an apartment, we probably have better success. But we don't know because right now we don't have the data in front of us. And I say that in comparison with somebody who's unfortunately not able to make rent at this time. But I'd like to know where we have the best long-term success in intervening to prevent homelessness. So some better data would be very helpful. I'd like to have Lifeline that's administrated this program. I'm sorry we didn't ask them to be with us this evening. That would have been good. I would like to have them here when we bring this item back because I think it would be good to have some information from them. Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you. Great discussion. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for following the direction provided during our last review of our strategic plan to address homelessness, where we were able to see from the pilot program that we had how successful it is in preventing homelessness to have some sort of rental subsidy. And this was something I had requested over multiple meetings and ultimately led the motion for a permanent rental assistance program during our last review. And I am really grateful that everybody supported that. And now we have options for how we're actually going to implement it in a way that could be sustainable in the long term and also serve even more people. So I think Councilmember Green, you confirmed that my math was correct, right? That if 96 families were served during the pilot program, and the average rental assistance we provided was about $3,400, then we may be able to serve 400 families with these funds. And 400 households with a deadline to use these funds by 2026, that's even more families than we served during the pilot program. I agree with Deputy Mayor Contreras that considering the 60% threshold and the specificity of how to use these ARPA funds, it might behoove us to look at a more flexible financing tool that allow us to go to 80% AMI. There is that missing middle, right, where people who are making 80% AMI may still be severely rent burdened. One, loss of employment or change in their income, they may be at risk of homelessness. So I really, I wouldn't want to leave anyone out. Serving 400 folks at 60% AMI is good, but serving 400 folks at a larger income threshold might be even more appropriate since the goal is ultimately we're going to be serving more people since this is $1.4 million. Another question I had with AMI was, is this the income before the loss of income leading to housing insecurity?
At the time of application.
At the time of application. Okay, so this is their income when they are seeking rental assistance.
Correct.
Okay. So I think that also, on that end, it is appropriate, right? Because you would anticipate that if someone has lost their income to the point where they need rental assistance, that they are at a very low income level, which would be 60% AMI. So I understand the rationale behind ARPA's restrictions here, but if we used city funds for this type of program, we could be flexible, whereas we can't be flexible if we use ARPA funds, which leads me to support Mayor's statements that if we were to use ARPA funds to counter another expense that we have in need, with the assurance that we're going to be able to, for a longer term, funnel funds into a permanent rental assistance program, that would sustain us for a little bit. So we kind of have two options. One is to use these funds over the next 2.5 years and prepare to find financing tools by 2026, or to allocate these funds to a different improvement in the city and basically clear up the need for revenues in that area so that we can allocate funds here. I think that the more long-term solution is what the mayor has recommended. Because we're using ARPA funds, right? If we had a different funding source in front of us, I might feel differently, but these ARPA funds can be used for a wide range of programs, and using it for a rental assistance program, we're kind of limited. So I don't know how that would affect the staging and the preparation of materials for staff and what you would need to do to come back to us along, with our city manager and all of our folks in finance to ensure that we can have a sustainable funding source. But even beyond, right, 10 years or whatever hypothetical amount of time, my intention and my goal is for this to be an ongoing program. So yes, we might not want to have to race against the clock, allocate these ARPA funds to rental assistance and then spend it in 2.5 years. That feels a little frantic to me. But we do have, maybe the city manager can speak to that. What would that option look like for us?
So first of all, the 1.4 million has to be spent by the end of 2026, so that gives us 3.5 years to spend the money.
3.5, that's right.
If the council's idea is to take this money and put it into some other infrastructure improvement and then take the money out of that infrastructure improvement project and bring it back so that we have more freedom with ARPA, we're going to have to go back and see where we can find those funds. Most of the funds in our capital budget that are related to infrastructure are limited in what we can spend them on. There's not a lot of general fund money in the capital improvement program. So we'd have to go back, find where we can find 1.4 million that's not tied to something else and that we could use ARPA money for and claw this back. And so we'd have to revisit it with the council once we find those funds.
So there's a reason why you brought ARPA funds as the means to fund the rental assistance program compared to another funding source. And why is that?
Well, it was council's direction.
Right, but not ARPA funds specifically, right? But that we needed a funding source for the rental
There was
assistance.
some discussion of ARPA funds when we discussed this last time, and it is the most available and viable fund for us to use for this purpose at this time. We don't have general fund money unless we find it, like we said, in another project that we could pull it back and use ARPA funds for. So we'd have to look at that exchange.
How feasible is that? You said that there might be limitations there.
We'd have to investigate where we have 1.4 million in general fund that we could use ARPA money for, so that would take some time. We could come back in probably early September with an analysis, but we'd have to look at all of our projects to see what's ARPA eligible and what we have general fund money in.
Okay. I mean, I'm open to that. I also don't think it's irresponsible to use ARPA funds over the next 3.5 years for rental assistance and set the intention to find a more permanent source of the funds, because this has been such a successful program. If we're able to even replicate, if not improve, the pilot program that we had, I think that we would be successful. So I'm neutral in that regard. I had a couple more questions. What, if any, are the anticipated costs of the rental assistance administrator? Last time it was Lifeline. They hopefully would be open to applying for that RFP again in the future, but would we pay them anything as part of their administration?
They would be allowed up to 10% in administration fees.
Okay. And is that across the board for any NGO that does that administration?
Correct.
Okay. So that's something for us to consider. One of the things that I spoke about with city manager in reviewing this is it is really important for us to have an administrator, because our capacity at the city to administer these funds is very difficult, especially when you're getting into potential landlord and tenant conversations and mediation and disputes and documentation. That's all very complicated. Another question I had is the difference between rapid rehousing, which is like rental assistance to move into a place, versus rental assistance for homelessness prevention. Was our pilot program both of those things, or was it just rental assistance for homelessness prevention?
Just rental assistance for prevention.
Okay, that was my understanding. There are other programs available through our subcontractors and throughout the community for rental assistance to get into a place, and I think that those are also very important. Those are very recovery-minded, right? You're at a place where you can move into a new home, you have employment, you have all these connected services. Here's first and last month's rent and security deposit so you can move in. But this is for homelessness prevention, which is important for preventing further suffering and trauma of somebody degrading further into housing insecurity and homelessness. With that, I also wanted to know if we had any information about what is responsible for the 13% difference between 6 months and 13 months or over a year, right? It's 88% were able to stay in their housing after 6 months, and then 75% after a full year they were still there. So there's 13% of folks dropped off once you got to the year mark. And in order to continue to ensure that this is successful and even make the program more successful, I agree with the mayor, having more data about what's the difference between 6 months and 13 months. Did they need a little bit more funding? Because it looks like the average amount that we provided for folks was about, was less than $3,500. Did they maybe need a little bit more, right? Or did they need more services? Did they need more financial literacy? There are many different reasons for why there's that 13% gap. I would like to keep an eye on that and to make sure that we overcome that gap in the future and we have an even higher retention after 1 year. Thank you, Blanca. I think she just stepped out, for sharing her story. Really resonated with me when she said, she was so burdened because she couldn't afford to live. It's something I'm hearing from people in the community. There's different things that make us vulnerable, whether you're a senior, you're a single mom, you're a young person without many economic opportunities, where there's so much stress and a lot of folks are having a hard time surviving. So this is gonna help people become more stable. And I also want to emphasize something that I had brought up in previous discussions of our strategic plan to address homelessness. Kind of the first time I referenced that this should be a permanent program is the marketing of this program as a rental assistance program versus homeless prevention. Are we still going in that direction, that this is going to be a rental assistance program, maybe a little bit more approachable to the community than calling it a homeless prevention program?
Yeah, so the strategy in the plan will likely remain as homelessness prevention, but this program will likely be marketed as housing assistance, not as
Okay.
homelessness prevention, the program itself.
Okay, right, even beyond rental assistance, because we also can provide assistance for utilities, which
Yes.
people need to live.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say about how we want to go about financing this, because there's obviously a will to fund it, and there's funds to do this. So I'm interested in the discussion, and I'm really grateful for everyone's support in this. Thank you for answering all those questions.
I just wanted to offer on this math, if we have 1.4 million, if we took 450,000, 150,000 over the next 3 years, and actually put another 75,000, that would leave you with $875,000 to reprogram, and it would give us 3.5 years to find $875,000. We're certainly going to spend $875,000 in capital improvements over the next 3.5 years. So I think we could easily exchange those dollars, and then we take those dollars that we were going to spend on something else, and we can create a 10-year program here.
Could I speak to that
Councilmember.
just briefly? You made a comment about $150,000. I would just want to ensure that we're able to at least match the previous pilot program. So broken down into the years that the program existed, how much was provided? Was it 150,000? Was it over 150?
Between the two programs, it was about 350,000,
Over how many years?
2 years.
Okay. That I think is close, right? But I would want to make sure that we get a little bit closer to matching it because these funds were exhausted. Like, I want to make sure that we can cover folks even more than we were able to cover them in the pilot program. Is that, I don't know if that resonates with everyone else, but I'll heed to.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. And Jonathan, thank you for the presentation and all the information. Just really quick, I know it shows how many people we've helped. How many more called? Like, how many more people could we have helped if there was more funding available?
So we do have some additional data that wasn't provided here tonight, but I can follow up with you all regarding reasons why applicants were denied. Surprisingly, a majority of them were just lost contact. For whatever reason, they had reached out initially and we weren't able to follow up. But there were some that were above eligibility, some living outside of the city limits, maybe in the sphere of influence of Vista, but outside of city limits. But I can provide that data as early as tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I just look at programs, even just the awareness of the program. And you look at the safe parking lot that we're trying to bring forward, and that's another 25, 26, whatever the number is that we could potentially help get out of their cars and into housing. So there's just one thing. I would be very open to the structuring that the mayor is speaking about. To Councilmember Melendez's point, I would actually like to see the number increased a little bit above 150, maybe 200, 250, whatever that number can be broken down to. Or if there's more money, more, because I think it's such a good program to work to keep people off the street. I don't think you have to look very far to see people that are in need all around us. So I would definitely want to see that. Exodus, I believe, in Blanca, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it takes a tremendous amount of courage to do that, and I'm so glad to see your success. And if there's more people like yourself that we can help, I am all for it. The raising of the AMI, I also think, is very important. I'm just looking at these numbers. This is not a lot of money, to try and rent a place, even as a single individual. You need to make more than that to survive beyond just rent. So anything we can do to try and raise the AMI to help more people and just make sure that they don't end up on the streets or whatever it might be. And even the number 18% I think is low. I think that's just the number that we know of. There's a lot of people that sleep on people's couches or stay with a friend or whatever it is that aren't reported in these numbers that probably need the assistance as well. So I'm very supportive of it. I would like to see the breakdown of the numbers of what we can do to try and prolong the program as much as we can. Beyond that, I think everything else has been talked about, but I'm definitely interested to see where the council goes with this. So, thank you.
I did want to throw out there, according to the census, the American Community Survey, the average median income in the city of Vista is 89% of the average median income in the county of San Diego, meaning that the citizens of Vista are earning 11% on average less than residents of San Diego County. Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Thank you for pointing that out. I think, it's just really, that's a critical fact to have on the table because, there are just so many folks that need help, and the 60% or even 65% AMI is really, I believe, is not going to capture everybody that could use, who really needs the help, that could use this program. But understanding the limitations with ARPA, I'm open to any kind of way to make this program more robust and permanent. But I do think that it is important for, and are we needing a motion to move this forward, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll put a motion on the floor, but I understand that it's a little bit difficult because we don't know how to finance it. I think that we should continue with the staff recommendation of using the ARPA funds, but then also understand that we have a responsibility as a city to allocate any kind of funds, whether it's at the year-end fund balance or, just a dedicated funding to go towards this program where we're not hindered by any ARPA regulations, where we can expand beyond the 65%. And capture perhaps all the way up to 120, or even looking at the stat that you brought up, even to 90% AMI. But I think for the sake of making sure that this program moves forward, I would offer a motion that we accept staff's recommendation with the addition of increasing the AMI to the maximum available to us under ARPA guidelines, which is 65%. And that council continues the discussion of allocating more funds towards this program so that we can address above 65% AMI. Is that succinct enough? Took me a little bit to think about that.
If I could offer, I think the most expeditious path here is to accept the staff recommendation, begin the program with the ARPA funding that we have, provide the staff some opportunity to go back, look at our capital projects, look at what other eligible funding there is for ARPA money that we could swap it with, and then we can come back to council as soon as possible with an adjustment.
Okay, but still adjusting for 65% AMI.
If we use our money, we would have discretion to use it at any AMI.
So you're suggesting that we just move forward with staff's recommendation without increasing this to 65%?
No,
AMI?
I think it's fine to leave it at 65 since
Okay.
ARPA allows that. We'll just have to work within the ARPA
And then we'll look at
guidelines
the-
until we can swap the money
Okay,
out.
yeah, that sounds good. So I'll just cut to the chase and say I accept staff's recommendation, but increasing it to 65% AMI, and we'll hear back from our wonderful coworkers on staff about it. Thanks.
I would agree with you on the 65%. I think maybe we should set a number for this year. I think maybe it's $200,000. We spent $200,000 a year. That would be more than we spent $175,000 over each of the last 2 years. So we raise it to 200. Over the next 3 years that we spent the ARPA money there, it's $600,000. It leaves us with roughly half the money left to reprogram, which would be pretty easy to do. And it'd allow us to also get a little bit more data. If we pay it out $200,000 a year, we can collect some more information and learn some more, because it is an experiment. It's not been done for years, so we're learning as we go here. It would be good to get those numbers. Councilman Green?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is just, if we approve this as is, obviously with the 65% AMI, as a council, we can amend it at any point in time, right?
Certainly.
Yes. So that's my thing, is I didn't want to hold up anything. I know our city manager said it would take probably to the first meeting in September to come back with the CIPs and where we're going to go back and forth. I don't think it's a huge risk to approve staff's recommendation as is. I don't think over the next 60 days we're going to get through $200,000 anyways. If we do, we might need to put more funding in this program. But I think that I would definitely just second the motion as made, because I really feel like we're all working towards the same goal. We all basically want to make this program, last in perpetuity for when none of us are even serving on the council, so that it's always something. And, when you presented this, regardless of who makes the motions and everything like that, it was clear to us as a council that this is the most beneficial program. And all 5 of us up here advocated heavily for this once we saw the difference that it was making. So I'm going to second the motion as presented at 65%. And with respect to the mayor, hopefully that when it comes back in September that we are directing staff with this to say, hey, we want to have more flexibility. And I think that's what we all want. So get going, Jonathan, start helping some people. And thank you guys so much for the discussion and the support. And again, for just constantly pounding to make something happen. And this is a lightning speed again for the government, which is great. Thank you so much. I'd say moved in second. Let's go.
Just to restate, where the motion is to adopt staff's recommendation, the only change at this time being going from 60 to 65% AMI. Okay. Councilmember Melendez?
To clarify, my understanding was that accepting staff's recommendation, going up to 65%, and anticipating new information from staff about CIP projects. And I agree with Councilmember Green. I don't think that we're going to spend $200,000 by the time staff comes back with those CIP updates.
You're right. I forgot to include.
I just want to make sure the third thing was in there.
You're
too.
right. I
Okay.
forgot to include the guidance that we've given tonight to revisit this. So we all understand what the motion is. Without any further comment, please cast your votes. That item is approved unanimously, and that will bring us to our final round of oral communications. Do we have any final oral communication speakers? We have none. Okay, that will bring us, I'm going to ask our city clerk to introduce our new member of the team at the dais, Assistant City Clerk.
Yes, it's my pleasure
Callison. Please go ahead.
to introduce Callison Leahy. She has been with the city for about 6 months or so, so not a long time, but has impressed many staff along the way, and we're very pleased to have her join us as our Assistant City Clerk.
Very good. Welcome aboard. Do you have any comments for us this evening?
No, I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to working with you. Our city clerk, Kathy Valdez, any comments this evening?
Aside from welcoming Callison, I just wanted to mention that we'll be announcing the dates for the Leadership Academy very shortly, so keep your eye out for that. Thank you.
Excellent. Our city attorney, Walter Chung, no comments tonight. City manager, John Conley.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things to mention. The third show of the Moonlight Summer Season, 42nd Street, opens August 16th and shows through September 2nd. Ticket and informations are at moonlightstage.com. A reminder that the city's household hazardous waste collection facility is a free service for any Vista residents. It's open Saturdays from 9 to 3 p.m., located across the street from the Public Works Yard at 1145 East Taylor. You can bring old and broken electronics, paint or oil cans, used batteries, and a host of other toxic products to the city's facility. And finally, I want to acknowledge that our new fire chief, Gerard Washington, will start on Monday. We're excited to have Chief Washington start. We'll be bringing him around to meet all the council members, and we will have some community events to invite the public to meet our new chief. And that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Fantastic. Councilmember O'Donnell.
This is a record pace for government right now. I don't think we've been out of here by 8:30 in a long time. Callison, welcome to the team. I've only known you a brief period of time, but I've been very impressed, so I'm very glad to see you sitting up here. So congratulations on that. I just want to thank the residents who came out to my town hall on July 23rd. You have an email coming to you late this evening, but I am going to send out a communication just to follow up on that with some information on moving forward. I just want to thank our public speakers this evening. I don't have a lot of other updates to make. I also just want to thank my wife, Allie, as I always do, for allowing me to be here on this dais and taking me away from my family. So thank you all for a lively discussion tonight, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you. Dan, you forgot to mention you just had your 40th birthday. It's Leo season. Happy birthday. That's a big one, 4-0. Congrats. I have a couple updates. So we didn't meet in July, but I did represent the City of Vista on both SANDAG and CEA. So for SANDAG, we had 2 important workshop meetings where we were doing some planning activities and planning for the 2025 plan. And we were in work groups and we were piecing together pieces of financing and talking about specific projects. I really pushed and advocated for active transportation. It's something I talked about with my group, and I was able to identify different areas in the city of Vista for active transportation improvements. Those would be corridors like East and West Vista Way, Melrose, and Santa Fe. right? These areas that we want to make adaptable for all modes of transportation, and active transportation is great for reducing greenhouse gases and also just getting people more active. Been talking to a lot of my neighbors, and they're excited about the green bike lanes, but they also want to make sure that there's real safety. Visibility is helpful, but we want to keep enhancing the safety of our roads and all of the users on the roads. So that was some of the activities and advocacy I did on Sandag over the last month. And then for Clean Energy Alliance, we're in the process of hiring a new CEO. Our wonderful Barbara Boswell is leaving us to essentially step down because this organization is getting quite large. We, the City of Vista and the City of Oceanside are going to be launching our Clean Energy Initiative in 2024. So we're looking for a new CEO. I was appointed to the hiring subcommittee. So the past 2 days, I have been in long hours of interviewing potential CEOs. And I just want everyone to know that we have a lot of great talent in our community for executive leadership. And I've impressed to every single person who wants to work for CEA that my priorities in Vista are for us to have a successful launch in 2024, for us to continue to be financially responsible and look towards reducing costs to the consumer, for us to pursue energy independence and those community projects like community solar, so that and battery storage, and means for us to not have to depend on big energy, but be able to procure our own energy at home and have that energy independence. And also for us to really prioritize the environment. So those are some really great conversations we were able to have with some of our potential CEO applicants. And outside of that, I think that's all I have. It's really great to be back from our break, and I'm excited for some of the great discussions we're going to be having over the next couple months. So thank everyone for a great discussion.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
All right. Well, I did bet Terry Woods from North County Daily Star that we would be done at 8:30, and he said, "You're very optimistic, but I think I might win this one." So I want to say that there's big news at North County Transit District. For those of you who haven't heard, our executive director, Matt Tucker, is retiring and will be done with NCTD by September 1st. That puts me in the position as chair of marketing committee to be part of the executive team. So I will be having different discussions about who's going to lead that organization. It's going to be a big task. NCTD is incredibly important, the services that they provide, not only to Vista, but to our entire North County. So that will be interesting, and I look forward to having discussions with my colleagues on NCTD about that. Otherwise, for those who want to come over to District 1, Guerreras en Acción por un Vista Limpio are continuing under Team Captain Jovita Serafin to pick up trash every Wednesday, and this is their 4th year doing it. So you better believe that at some council meeting in the near future, they're going to be getting their annual awards. They definitely deserve it. And other than that, I hope everybody has a good night, and yeah, stay safe.
Councilman Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Jacobs, thank you so much for staying the whole time, my man. It was so good to... We did that already. We took it early. But anyways, thank you for coming. We really appreciate you. It was great to hear you compliment green bike lanes. I think we should paint the whole town green, but I got to work on my council on that one. Allison with a K, really appreciate that. Callison Leahy, she used to be in the engineering department, planning department, actually, and got to know her down there. Really think that she brought a lot of joy to that. So it's going to be good to have you on the dais up here. When we look to the right, keep smiling, because we need smiles at the end of that right there. I also want to thank my wife, because Dan thanked his wife, and I love my wife more. So Jennifer, I love you more than Dan does his wife. And then lastly, he's 4 decades old. That's a long time. It's actually over the hill. There's like something they say. So high tide, more gray, you're going to get more. Anyways, happy birthday. I meant to say, I'm so glad you were born, Councilmember O'Donnell. You're very welcome. And yeah, Caleb's dad is 40. Well, yeah. Well, just love my wife in general more, but it is what it is. Anyways, I've digressed. ADHD boy, thank you so much, everybody who's here. Thank you, my colleagues, for an amazing night. And we got a lot of great work done, which is the most important. Floor is yours, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I want to thank my wife, too, because she puts up with an awful lot. Shauna is a saint to let me serve as the mayor of Vista and put up with me sometimes not coming home from these council meetings until midnight. So thank you, sweetheart. I love you and I appreciate you. 3 really important announcements. Our Vista Sheriff Station Senior Patrol Program is seeking volunteers. You've seen them all around town. They are very important to our Sheriff's Department. If you are 50 and over and want to impact Vista in a meaningful way, consider volunteering at least 1 day a week. Senior volunteer patrol members perform numerous roles essential to Vista's safety network. For more information, call 760-940-4434 or visit the city's new page at cityofvista.com. And Mr. Fred Tracy is going to get me an electronic version of their flyer, and we'll have that up on our city socials soon. And I hope that all of you council members will join me in sending that out. We have a lot of fun at Movies in the Park. If you haven't been to one of them, it's a ton of fun. Bring the kids, bring the grandkids. A lot of glow sticks given out for free at Bringle Terrace Park this Saturday, August 12th at 8 p.m. I invite you to come out and enjoy Marvel's Ant-Man and Wasp's Quantumania. It's a free event. Bring your picnic blankets, lawn chairs, and enjoy a night under the stars. Registration is also open for the fall session of the Vista Sheriff Station Junior Deputy Program. This was a really cool program. I think most of us, if not all of us, had the opportunity to see our deputies interact with, what did we have? Probably about 100, maybe it was more than 100 young people. That was just super impressive. The difference that these deputies made from, is an 8-week program, right? 8 weeks? 8 weeks? I think it's 8 weeks. Those 13 weeks? 13 weeks. Thank you, Kathy. The difference from the first week is I was there for the first night, and then to be there at the graduation and to see these young people respond positively to our deputies, build a great rapport with them. By the way, they brought Astria in. They brought all kinds of different units in. You know, Astria, our helicopter, landed it right there at the Linden Rhodes Rec Center for the kids. But to see the development personally, the sense of self-worth and character was incredible. So I really want to commend that program to the community and thank our deputies for making that happen, because they work well past their assigned shifts to make that program happen. So big thank you to our sheriff's deputies. It's open to, it says 12 weeks, 12-week character building program open to young people between the ages of 10 and 16. Vista Sheriff's deputies teach the academy in conjunction with the City of Vista. The program is held at the Linden Rhodes Rec Center on Thursday evenings from August 31 through November 30th. To register or get more information, go to cityofvista.com/junior deputy. And Councilmember O'Donnell, do you have one more comment?
2. 1, thank you for the birthday wishes, but I completely forgot. We recognized VID here for the 100-year celebration of being in existence for Vista. On September 9th, which is a Saturday, everybody should show up from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. because they're going to have their own celebration at the Vista Irrigation District. So the address is 1391 Engineer Street here in Vista. They're going to have food, they're going to have kids' activities, information booths, and they're also going to have a scavenger hunt. So make sure you save the date and show up.
Thank you for that. We are adjourned. Have a good night.